Rogers after the play fake, showing his great athleticism. He's going to take it all the way for his third touchdown of the game. 78 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
May looking, guns it in the end zone, touchdown, Carolina. Bryson Nesbitt.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 5. Hennigan's going to keep it. A little RPO. Out to the tight end. Bruce scored for the end zone. All he does is what?
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
On the right hip and now to the left to Spencer Rattler. Quick throw, intercepted. Jeremiah Trotter heading for the end zone. Touchdown, Clemson.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
2nd and 13. Rogers taken down again. Harold Perkins, the true freshman.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in. Smokey begins his vacation today. You'll start to see some spidiness coming up because 1 week from tomorrow will be my last show for 2 weeks before I go to Hawaii. But Smokey's not here. Craig and I will take you through the next 3 shows, today, tomorrow, and Monday, and then we're all back together all of next week. But there is, look, the SEC meetings going on, the Big 12 meetings going on, and everybody's waiting for that big drop of realignment news. We'll get to what's going on there. Baylor had a huge transfer commit today in RayJ Dennis for basketball. We'll talk about that with Kendall Kaut later. Max Olson's coming up in the very next segment to talk about Colorado and like whether it makes sense if they were to come to the Big 12. We'll get into all that, but there's a lot going on in the Big 12 meetings today. There are new schools that join the AAU. Whether that affects realignment down the line or not would always remain to be seen, and that might have been made a bigger deal than it really is when you think of it in the modern context. But there are 6 new schools in the AAU, Arizona State, Miami, USF. I'm blanking on the other 3, but I'll pull them up and talk about it in a second. But Craig Smoak, it is interesting what's going to be happening at the Greenbrier starting today in the Big 12 meetings. If there is, in fact, realignment talks, and Joe Castiglione is participating in both meetings. This is from Kirk Bowles of the Austin American-Statesman, saying that he's meeting by Zoom with Big 12 people who are in Greenbrier, deciding on further Big 12 expansion, etc. So the scuttlebutt is out there. Whether it comes to it or not, I guess we'll see. But this would be maybe the start of the most interesting time when it comes to realignment. Yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, what do you classify as most interesting? Just this chapter? Like the when it would happen kind of a time. Yeah, it's interesting to see that where that comment's coming from, given they're on their way out, and how privy are they to what's actually being talked about in regards to the Big 12's future. I don't know how much crossover there is there. Certainly, though, it wouldn't be surprising if Joe Castiglione had a pretty good idea of what was going on, whether or not he was, behind closed doors. But I also saw that I would like to see the full quote on that, because the way that, he's quoted there, then Kirk adds on as they're talking about expansion, but that wasn't in the quote. Yeah. So I don't know if Kirk added that on or if that's just like the rest of what Joe said. And if that's the case, if Joe said it, it's far more interesting because he's outright saying they're talking about this. Now, then again, regardless, we kind of know that they're talking about that. I mean, I don't think there's been any secret that they've had discussions for the entire last year. They are going to continue to have discussions. We've had Baylor AD Mac Rhodes on this show multiple times. He's usually a weekly guest, but this week he's obviously busy and can't join us, and that happens from time to time. But, I mean, I think we've talked about it as much as any place in America, and he's talked about it as openly as any AD in America. So
I don't think that's a surprise in any way, shape, or form. That news that they're talking about, potential realignment. But I get that because of the Colorado stuff that maybe it seems like more of like, oh my gosh, like they're talking about realignment. So that's understandable. And yeah, it makes for, some interesting times because there is now this twist in the wind of, the PAC talks and the, kind of sort of where we are with that. And, where we've been the last few weeks is not necessarily where we're headed now because there wasn't a whole lot of momentum behind Colorado these last few weeks. There wasn't a whole lot of like, yeah, this Pac-12 is really done. I mean, I know there was people that said that, but, that was as much, I think, trolling as anything else a lot of the time. Now, because of, what Max has reported and what others have put out there, there does seem to be this week like there's a little bit of a turning of the tide. And, I don't know if that leads to what everybody seems to think it's going to lead to, but it is very interesting, and it does feel like we're sort of closing in on some decisions being made, and how much longer, can you go on as an entity like Colorado, whoever else may be weighing their options, with the waiting game before you decide, like, hey, we got to do something. As Rick George said last week, we'd love to stay here, but we got to ultimately do what's best for us. So at what point do they feel like they have to make that move and do what's best for them? And that's what we don't know. But, yeah, Colorado, there's a lot of heat around them right now. And if you're a Big 12 fan, then, you feel like there's probably a little bit of blood in the water. But I don't know if it's, locked in just yet. So I'm being kind of cautious with the whole thing of, I think there's legitimately a chance this happens, but I also think that, maybe there's a miracle on the way. I'm not quite ready to read the Pac-12 its last rites like some are so ready to do right now.
Yeah, I do think that, you hear different theories. Like, I could buy in more, like, Tim Fitzgerald posed an interesting one to me in that, maybe the Pac-12, because they know they're not going to get a deal, is just waiting for someone like Colorado to bolt so they can say, well, they didn't wait for the deal, and then it's not necessarily on the league to have, pushed Colorado out. It's just Colorado wasn't patient enough, if that's how they want to spin it. But then you hear, we had Karen Brodkin on yesterday from Endeavor, and the way she said, look, Brett Yormark has big plans. Again, that's for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But I do think that expansion is the biggest of those plans, and he's made no bones about that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's Colorado. Maybe you push, like, if Colorado gets to the brink and decides to go back to the Pac-12, that's when you get serious about other people who won't be in that mess. I don't know.
Right.
So
yeah, I saw I think his name's Aaron Torres. I just want to make sure that that's the right person out on the tweet. But they were talking about the idea, and I thought it was actually, I think we maybe touched on it kind of, but not in full like this, but was talking about the expansion piece with basketball in particular. And, there's also a lot of stuff floating around about, the talks regarding UConn and the talks regarding Gonzaga and the basketball side of these things, and the fact that the Big 12 and Brett Yormark have made it known that basketball is a priority, that they think they're basketball is undervalued and that there's more money to be made there, and they're going to go play some, have practice exhibitions in New York City and do all sorts of different things, moving forward. And, you wonder, like, okay, well, what's the piece of, if you bring in UConn, you bring in Gonzaga, like, where do they fit into the grand scheme of things? And, as he pointed out, if you think that is an undervalued, sport in so many ways, but you're also wondering, like, where do we fit in this next wave? Well, you're not going to stack up team for team football-wise.
Yeah.
Big brand-wise football, you're not going to be able to match the SEC or the Big Ten at the moment. And you may never be able to pound for pound stack up with the top tier of those teams, although I think some years that, maybe not the SEC, but the Big Ten, that I think that the Big 12 could probably have a pretty good little fight. But you look at the basketball side of things, and it's the number 2 sport, and maybe that's where they fit in, and that's kind of what arrows have pointed at for a long time. And I just haven't heard it put the way that he kind of put it, of Gonzaga and UConn, and you bring in those brands and you add them to Kansas and to Baylor and to Tech and to whoever, and it's like, yeah, you may not be able to be pound for pound number 1 in football, but you can be a really solid number 3, and then you can be a very solid number 1 or 1B or whatever in basketball, and look at yourself now, and you're in pretty good shape. And so I hadn't really heard it put that way, but that makes a lot of sense. And so, there's that part of this as well. But yeah, a lot of the heat right now is around Colorado. Again, don't know if we're anywhere close to some decision being made. It's not like there's a countdown in 10 days we'll know something one way or the other. There's just a lot of stuff floating out there, but it has ramped up. And there's, I think, far fewer people going there's nothing's going to happen here. I think even some of those folks are like, okay, wait a second. This is going on long enough now where maybe there is something happening here. So yeah, it's all very interesting.
If you had to grade me on where I've been throughout this process, if you would have told me a year ago I was at 90-10, I'm like, look, they'll get something done, and then let's have this talk again in 5 years. And then each time this thing has gotten kicked down the road, I've been 10% shoved into the other direction of, I don't know, man. I mean, it doesn't seem like the Pac-12 is making good decisions. And I would just tell you from someone who lived it, and Craig and I and everybody in the studio probably has a maybe different perspective than a lot because we lived it a couple times here in Big 12 country where we've seen it, everything gets shaken up. And I'm just looking at what's going on in the Pac-12 and seeing what I've seen before in the Big 12 here where, you get down to it, there's no resolving certain issues without people leaving or without and that was here in the Big 12. There's no the television contract just seems like they're boxed in on where they have to go and what they expect level by level, whatever that is, plus what is actually available to them. Kind of reminds me of the decisions that everybody had to make when it came to Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri, and A&M leaving the Big 12 when they did was, the Longhorn Network wasn't going to go anywhere. That wasn't going to get renegotiated into a Big 12 network. It wasn't going to do this. Particularly Nebraska and Texas A&M just had huge problems with the way that Texas was unilaterally seemingly making decisions for the whole league, and they had enough. Nebraska not nearly as long as A&M, but A&M was finally in a position to be able to do something about it, as where previous attempts to separate themselves or take more of a leadership role in college athletics in the state had been thwarted by the fact that A&M was fairly new to being a big-time school and not just an all-male military school. So when they had that opportunity, they took it. It just seems to me that you're getting to those things where those points where people have to make decisions, and it may not be the decision that makes incredibly the most sense on the surface, but we're not in those rooms, right? So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think that there's only. It feels like probably for some there's so many seats that are open, right? And you got to feel like you got to grab a seat before the doors close and you are left out in the cold. And I think that, maybe there's some of that feeling with, some schools who feel like there's that gap and then that gap's only going to get increasingly worse if they don't make a move of some kind. I think that's probably what Brett Yormark's pitching is hey, we're going to be a solid number 3. And, and it's not like this is a done deal or anything like that. I mean, it's still very much in so many ways in the same place it has been. But, yeah, the conversation has definitely changed from, I don't know, September and then again in November and then in February. And, all throughout that time, we were supposed to hear of some sort of a deal at some point, and here we are, and it's freaking June 1st. I mean, and I know, there's nothing due. It's not in a rush to get done, but clearly it kind of is in some ways because some folks – who are depending on that are getting a little bit antsy. Clearly, I mean that's something you can't deny. You can say till you're blue in the face that nothing is still going to happen. That's fine, but you can't deny that there is at least the chatter that's ongoing, and it's not just the chatter of that you dismiss of oh well that's just how it's done. There's conversations that are dude. We've reached a point past that. Come on now. Every single major outlet is talking about this. Every single person in college athletics practically is talking about realignment in the last couple of days. So it's not just this casual nothing's going to actually come of it type of conversation. Maybe that's what it was in last August or something. Maybe that's what it was in October. Maybe that's what it was in March. But, I mean, it's June 1st now. So what are we talking about? It's not just nothing. And so very curious as to, what the next steps are as far as what could possibly, move this on down the line. I have seen a lot of Pac fans who are well, go ahead and take the worst schools that we have. That's totally fine. And I get everybody's going to have their reactions one way or the other to it. But I do think that, they're going to have the opportunity with expansion one way or the other. Like, I still think you feel great if you're San Diego State that you're going to have a spot somewhere. I don't know about SMU. I think you're probably a bit more 50-50 on what the future looks like. And I don't know, I guess your percentages would increase with schools leaving more than with them staying. But that's going to be very curious to see how this continues to develop, because there's clearly a lot of rumblings behind the scenes that are more than just rumor mill type of stuff at this point. There's conversations taking place, and we'll talk to Max about more of what he's heard and learned about. But yeah, it's just very interesting how this roller coaster has maneuvered along, and now here we are, and right before media days. It's going to be interesting to hear some of these guys at their media days talking about some of what these subjects have been, and having to answer some of those questions. And we've heard the pockets of Kirk Schultz and Rick George and all of that, and they've had their say these last few months. But pretty soon we're going to have to hear some more, and I'm curious as to what that be. If it'll be the same message of we're standing together, or if there's a little bit more of that door being left open. But yeah, you're in a weird spot right now if you're a certain number of schools.
By the way, the schools that are in the AAU, Arizona State, GW, George Washington, California Riverside, Notre Dame, and USF are now in the AAU. So those are the ones I brought up long ago with Miami, who've joined the AAU today and have been extended membership. And I got to tell you this, if you had told me when I was in high school that USF would be one of the premier research institutions in the country, it was not that. And so while UCF has surpassed them in size and all these different things that have gone on there, USF, as far as it comes to research and getting the AAU, that's what they've put their focus on. And congratulations to them for doing that, because it was not that when I was living there at all. And, so they've come a long way in a relatively short amount of time. So, but yeah, Miami's always been a fantastic school. Notre Dame's one of those schools, when they're not in the AAU, it kind of surprised me, oh, they're not? Okay. And then in GW too, same thing with them. But Arizona State, again, that's a huge school that's in the AAU, whatever that matters for realignment down the line. Real quick before we got to take a break to get to Max Olson, Baylor got RayJ Dennis to commit today to Scott Drew and the basketball team. He is, of the offensive transfers, according to Evan Miyakawa, who we've had on the show a bunch, number one over even Max Asmus, Hunter Dickinson, all those guys. He averaged almost 20 points a game at Toledo last year. He was the MAC Player of the Year. Comes to Baylor with 1 year of eligibility. We will talk to Kendall Cowden about RayJ Dennis at 4 o'clock today. We will have Scott Drew on the show tomorrow. Hopefully it's official by 5 o'clock tomorrow, and we have Scott Drew so he can talk about what RayJ Dennis brings to the team. So that is pretty exciting for the Bears and what they did today. They improved greatly today, and with Flagler gone, they had a lot of questions there. RayJ Dennis, I think, solves a lot of those problems.
Yeah, you hope so. It's a really good get. Need to look more into more about him outside of the kind of the base level knowledge that's been out there and some of the write-ups. But from the reaction, seems like they, got a great player based on the numbers, got a great player based on the position he plays at point guard. I mean, they're going to definitely, need some help there this season. So, excited to hear more about him from Kendall, who I know is one of those that's really got the insight into the program, unlike very few others. And I know that people on the boards are fired up about it and excited about this addition. So, excited to see that come down and become official, and see now that, the one shoe dropped with Flagler that you knew was kind of coming, but it didn't take them long to go ahead and replace him and his roster spot, and see what other tweaks that they make here over the next few months. But it's going to be a very competitive Big 12, very competitive national landscape, but you'd expect them, even with all their losses, to be in the mix to some extent. And I'm curious to see how they fill out the rest of this team and what it ends up looking like when all is said and done. But yeah, big get today, and a big celebration, I'd imagine, over on campus.
All right, Max Olson of The Athletic wrote a column on Colorado and if it would be good for them to come to the Big 12 if they so in fact chose to do so. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco, a great place for ideas for Father's Day. Zycar Travel Humidors are back in stock. They have Zycar Travel Humidors, 3 different sizes, a 5 cigar count, 10 count, and 15 count. New lighters in stock. Fresh new designs, finishes to catch the eye. And desktop humidors are on sale at Don's Humidor for Father's Day. They have a limited edition Punch Dad Bod cigar. It has a great flow, draw, and medium flavor, great for anyone who smokes cigars. They have CBD and hemp-derived THC product for whatever ails you. Great for sleep, Vitadreams, a gummy. Great for aches and pains and mild anxiety, depression, or just a good old-fashioned fun. Tell Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne David Smoak sent you. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession? We
selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
It's the Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, and these deals couldn't be any hotter. Shop the greatest selection of brand new inventory in Central Texas, and now get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars and Laramies. That's right, or 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Shop our huge selection of new inventory today or browse online. Hurry in to the Memorial Day sales event going on now at Allen Samuels in Waco. Offer ends May 31st.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and Max Olson of The Athletic. Max wrote a fantastic column, as he most of the time does, for the Athletic about
most of the time.
Most of the time. Look, I'm not gonna say they're 100%. I mean, nobody bats 1,000. Max is pretty good.
What, you got some grievances you want to lay out? Let's hear them.
I know. No, I have.
Let's go through my list of stories, and you tell me which ones you didn't like.
No,
let's do that.
Yeah, I'm almost saying there's probably ones that you wish you could have back, like everybody does. Like, I should have put that in there. No,
just more FSU.
No, never.
More
FSU.
FSU.
Can't think of one. Can't ever think of one.
Yeah, but no, Max. Another great column on this one on Colorado, and if the Big 12 makes sense for them, and it is such a strange issue because of everything that's happened to them since they left. Their football program has plunged into irrelevance. There's athletic department budget deficits, but you could say that about teams and conferences that make a lot of money. And I don't know if the Pac-12 that they were joining is the Pac-12 that it's obviously not, but if it's ever going to be that or if they thought it was. But in your estimation, are they trading one thing for the same thing if they leave, or would they actually be upgrading if they went to the Big 12?
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at Colorado, at least in athletics, and I know obviously you can't fully separate the academic from the athletic consideration on this if you're the leadership at Colorado, but if you look at the athletics and their experience in the Pac-12, in some ways, like Colorado is like kind of fortunate to even be in this conversation. I mean, not just because they went 1-11 last season, but I mean, if you look at their time in the Pac-12 going back to 2011, I mean that football program was 48-94, and has only had one top 25 season. They had a great year in 2016 under Mike McIntyre, but that's it in terms of like landmark seasons for them in that conference. They haven't found a way to be successful, and in fact haven't won a bowl game since 2004. So, to what degree can you like blame that on being in the wrong league versus like making not great coaching hires and things like that? Like obviously that's hard to like separate, but it's an interesting one. Obviously everyone has kind of agreed Colorado would be valuable. Expanding West would be valuable for the Big 12, and this has been on the radar ever since really last July. And I think that they have a really interesting decision to make if the Pac-12 deal is not to their liking. But would they be upgrading in a significant way by going to the Big 12? Like that's kind of in the eye of the beholder a little bit.
Max, there's the Deion Sanders factor that's been mentioned here, but as a lot of people have pointed out, I mean, it's not like he signed a lifetime contract. So do you think Colorado is as attractive at the very moment as it seems to be for the Big 12 if Deion wasn't the head coach? And how do you answer questions that would come up as far as, okay, well, if he bounces to Michigan State in 2 years, is Colorado suddenly far less valuable than it was? I mean, how big of a piece is Deion in this interest level?
I do think, just from everyone I've talked to, like I do think the Deion part is very intriguing to Brett Yormark. I think that he sees a lot of synergies there. Certainly, he's talked plenty about the Big 12, getting younger, hipper, cooler, and I think they love the opportunity there, and it gives them like real excitement about the upside of Colorado football. But you're right. I mean, this is a volatile business. Where will Deion be in 5 years? Where will Brett Yormark be in 5 years? Like it does sort of feel like short-term thinking in some ways. And obviously that's not the only positive of Colorado. I mean, you can go down the list on a bunch of reasons why it kind of makes sense that Denver's still an important TV market. And, there's been past success in the Big 12 under Gary Barnett, but I definitely get what you mean. Like it makes them hot right now. Certainly right now they're very nationally relevant. And that was the perfect hire to kind of elevate the way people look at Colorado. But, where's this program? I think we all kind of expect Colorado's probably not going to be great this season. And, if Deion Sanders is very successful, you would think he's going to move on. And if he's not, then you'd think he'd move on. So it's a really interesting kind of X factor in all this because it makes them sexier. But, kind of what is the trajectory there?
Max, I've of the belief that the Pac-12 will get a media deal. It may not be, again, to everybody's liking, and who knows when that'll be. I'm wondering what Colorado's internal clock is, though, when it comes to that. When you hear Rick George say things like he did last weekend, we're proud members of the Pac-12, but ultimately we have to look out for what's in the best interest of Colorado. I would, I take that to mean is that their clock on the media deal is not necessarily the Pac-12's clock on the media deal.
Yeah, that's been the thing that, as this process has dragged on, and I don't think at this point, I don't think this is a matter of the Pac-12 has got a deal done and they just haven't announced it yet. I think the negotiations really are ongoing, and it's hard to know. Like, yeah, it'd be great if you had an answer by the end of June, because San Diego State kind of needs to know about being admitted into the Pac-12 by then. But I think even at that, I think that's a reasonable goal. But between now and Pac-12 media days, I feel like you got to get that thing done. And so that thing just continuing to linger, yeah, I think it creates some impatience. But I don't know that Colorado. I guess I'd be surprised if Colorado bolted before they knew what the offer was. But we certainly don't have any sense of what the timetable is here on when we're really going to get resolution.
They were really kind of damned if they did, damned if they didn't, without there being an official announcement, right? Like, for example, a few months ago, there was all this talk going on, and it was probably best to just kind of leave it as is, but then it started to bubble up and become more of a thing, and then I guess there was a need to, we got to address it, but, I mean, as was pointed out in the article, you have an AD, I guess, saying, hey, we'll have it in a couple of weeks, and that was back in March. So was there any way to handle this differently, do you think, from the Pac-12's perspective? And look, everything could end up as is, and the addition of San Diego State and possibly SMU as well, and all this is just a funny thing to look back on. But is there any different way you think they could have handled this that would have made it maybe not feel as strenuous as it feels at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Obviously, George Kliavkoff has not been out here, giving a lot of interviews and talking on the record about this process and what's going on. And I think one thing that was probably a mistake a little bit is people getting a sense, and this doesn't come from him, but I mean, I think when you put kind of deadlines on this stuff and then you kind of blow past them, or at least people get the perception that, we're weeks away from this and then nothing happens. I think that does kind of build the tension a little bit more and certainly gives Brett Yormark and the Big 12 more ammo to pursue those schools and kind of prey on the concerns there a little bit, right? So, I think in terms of the PR part, they've certainly, taken a little bit of a beating on this, and they can do the victory lap obviously if they get a good enough deal and the whole league sticks together and granted rights and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's not necessarily a great strategy for this when you're just kind of sitting around waiting for this thing to play out in a fashion that is probably much longer than we anticipated, even if maybe that was a little bit unrealistic on our end.
Max, do you think that George Kliavkoff isn't saying much because there's not much to say?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think this stuff's fluid. I think especially when you're dealing with new partners and you're there's some that are standing pat at a certain number probably, and there's some that are still trying to figure out where they're at. In terms of trying to put together, and you guys did a great job interviewing Karen Brodkin yesterday, but you heard her say, even the Big 12 deal, when you're just renewing with your current partners, even that is extremely complicated to get that done. So certainly what the Pac-12 is trying to juggle here and pull this off and getting the right number, getting an acceptable setup in terms of distribution, resolving the Pac-12 network, all that stuff. I think that it's a complicated deal, and certainly if they're going to, partner with a streamer, then you're kind of working on their timetable too. So, it's a tough spot to be in.
We know that the Big 12 meetings are ongoing out in West Virginia, and I saw the quote from Kirk Bowles from Joe Castiglione, that got people kind of riled up about him walking through saying, I'm not in the room, they're talking about expansion or something along those lines. Obviously, weird transitions going on, but just of the meetings themselves, what do you know? What do you glean from the kind of the discussions going on, and how much of that do you think is geared towards this piece that we're discussing here, the expansion side, versus some of the other things that the conference is facing right now?
You're talking about the Big 12 meeting?
Yes, Big 12 meeting, sorry.
Yeah, and I'm not in West Virginia this week, so I haven't been looking in hallways and finding out what's going on there. But certainly, when you have the presidents and the ADs in one place with the commissioner, then you're going to you're going to talk through all of those options and the pros and cons and all that stuff. Some of that is kind of an extension of the Phoenix meetings they had, which was among ADs, but not presidents and board members and stuff like that. So some of it is a little bit repetitive, but as we all know, Brett Yormark also has a pretty long list of other things on his agenda too that he wants to achieve in year one here. So I'm sure that these are pretty intense meetings in terms of all the stuff they're working through. I don't think they're going to come out of those meetings saying we're adding these schools in expansion, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's never when we think it's going to happen. So, we'll just be sitting around waiting for it like normally, Max. But the UConn's been floated out there as well. How do you feel that fits in the growth of the Big 12 if that were to come down?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest, and you got to remember what Brett Yormark's background is in being a basketball guy and being an East Coast guy. Like, I think he looks at UConn probably a little differently than you and I do in terms of the way that they could help you get into the New York City market. And certainly he has not been shy about having very basketball-focused ambitions here for the next TV deal and trying to potentially break that off and sell it separately and really kind of get the value that stuff is worth. And so certainly what UConn has done in men's and women's basketball is tremendous and is worth his attention, obviously. And I think them winning the national championship this year certainly piqued his interest. And I don't doubt that he went and visited there soon after that happened. And so, the football piece is interesting. That's been a really irrelevant program, but Jim Mora took over last year, gets them to a bowl game in year one. Obviously, if they came into the Big 12 in football, they're going to struggle. And I mean, it's going to be a long process to getting competitive. But certainly I think the basketball angle and then the, kind of expanding the Big 12's reach more coast to coast and into these big markets that are important to him. I think that's certainly an angle in why he's, look at them pretty seriously.
Yeah, the message for the football fans will be like, hope you enjoyed that bowl game. That remember those things fondly for a little while because it would be uphill sled. Max, last thing before we let you go. The SEC, 8 games, 9 games. What do you think eventually, now that they've kicked the can down the road again, that will be?
Probably, get the sense this week it seems like it's 8 in the short term, hopefully 9 long term. I think that I get the difficulties there of of not wanting to have to dump non-conference games and being concerned about how much longer these schedules are going to be here starting next year at the extended playoff and all that stuff. But I think to most people it just kind of looks like you're doing this to try to maximize your playoff spots when it's already going to be maximized for the SEC. We all know that. And I think ultimately, you want the best matchups possible. You don't want a world in which, Texas and Texas A&M aren't playing every year, right? So I think that 9's the way to go. I think that they should get on board with it, and hopefully that happens sooner than later.
Yeah, all the cool kids are doing it. Max, thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Max Olson of The Athletic, we're here with us on 365 Sports. Yeah, the UConn thing is really interesting to me, and like I said before, you could not get me excited about a UConn versus anybody in the Big 12 matchup in football forever. UConn would have to be really, really good for a stretch of time. Yeah. But UConn versus anybody in the Big 12 in basketball, what day and where can I get tickets?
I mean, if they could somehow do the whole, let's grab Gonzaga and UConn basketball only, clearly Gonzaga would be basketball only. But, even – I guess, as far as, baseball, softball, and all, I guess that could be for later consideration. I mean, let's just kind of stick to the main ones.
The moneymakers.
Yeah, the moneymakers. So, there's 2 of those, and then, women's basketball is right there on the fringe, and baseball, and I don't know about the rest of the list beyond that. But, if you could somehow take UConn basketball, men's and women's, and then go grab Gonzaga, especially, the men's side, obviously, that would be pretty fantastic. That would be ideal. But UConn football, Gonzaga, and all the rest of the sports, and UConn and all the rest of the sports. Yeah, I don't know how appealing that is to tennis or to golf or to, some of those other programs. That would, I think have to be a heavy part of the conversation. But just a basketball-only deal, I'd take UConn in 2 seconds. I mean, they're the defending national champions, for God's sakes. Yeah. I mean, they're the champs. So if you could add them in the Zags, like that would be amazing to the Kansases and, Baylors and whoever else. That would be awesome. But, yeah, on the football side, I think you're going to really need to sell that a bit more and beyond of, well, West Virginia has someone closer and Cincinnati has someone close, and that's not like they're even necessarily all that close. They're just closer than Waco, Texas, But, those would be amazing. I mean, clearly, look, there's a lot of steam around all this. Nothing's happened. Colorado's not made a move, and they might still not. I mean, there could very well be, an ace up the sleeve where, they don't end up going anywhere. But there certainly is a lot of smoke around it, and you can't just ignore it and pretend like it's not there. I mean, it's very clearly out there, and time will tell on what actual decisions are made. But again, this would all be answered and could all and will be answered whenever a TV deal comes. And I think that's just the part that I'm the most curious about now. It's like I've never once this entire time rooted for a conference to go under or people and fans to suffer. Except for maybe some of the ones that are just, they kind of deserve it. Like there's like 2 or 3 people that you just kind of deserve it at this point. But, it's this TV deal part that's just fascinating to me. And I've been open-minded enough to believe and to understand these things take time and there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot and all of that. But I would just love to know if I could know anything. I'm just like, where are they at with this? Like what really is the real true story of where they are? Is it true that the money's not adding up? Is it true that it's this or it's that? Because there's so much speculation on that part of it that it's just trust me, bro. But we don't really know. I mean, and we kind of get to know more based on the fact that another week goes by, and then a month goes by, and then 3 months have gone by. But we don't really know, outside of the speculation of sort of where they are in that process. I mean, for all we know, they could turn around tomorrow and announce a deal. Now, that would be shocking given sort of the state of things and what all's been reported as of late. But it has become problematic in public relations-wise for them. Whether it's problematic beyond that, that's obviously the huge question that everybody's waiting to know the answer to, because it will affect a lot of schools, a lot of fans, and whatnot. But that's the curious piece that you kind of get a hunch on where it's headed, but you don't really know, and that's the key. That's the key that unlocks everything. So we wait. And we continue waiting, and, at some point there will be no more waiting left to be done.
Yep. When we come back, LSU has air-conditioned helmets. That is Garrett's very excited about it. They're not going to send him one, but
they need to.
He's very excited about it. He would wear it during the show the whole time if they did. And also, I'll pose this question. We've talked about it a little bit, but when it comes to this sport only in a conference, I think that's where it's ultimately headed, and why can't it be that way in the modern context? That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. By the way, thank you to Kim Coulter, who just told me that he's about to place a big order with Texas Beef House, and it's going to give away some gifts for some people. So if you're friends with Kim Coulter, which honestly, Kim sounded like an awesome guy already. He was hanging out with Rocky Patel before, but if you're friends with Kim Coulter, your life is pretty good. He's in Hawaii watching the show right now, which I really appreciate because I'm on this show. I'm about to go to Hawaii, and you guys, I won't even know what you're doing until I come back. I won't even think about it. It won't happen.
Thanks, Kim, for support of the show. Yeah,
which is better than me, and I work here. So
yeah, no, I get it. When I get away, I get away. But yeah, it sounds like he's having a good old time. So yeah, good deal, and thanks for supporting one of our sponsors.
Absolutely. So before the break, I threw this out there. I think because of the way that college athletics works and the departments work is there are a couple sports that make money regularly. Now, individual sports that are considered non-revenues at different programs can make money or break even. I'll throw out LSU baseball. Probably that's very well compared to most other baseball programs because if you go to the box there, it is pretty much sold out all the time. The atmosphere is great. It's part of the tradition. It's ingrained in the culture. But even then, they probably don't make as much money as you would think they would make. But they're probably getting closer to breaking even than most non-revenue sports do. But the revenue sports are men's basketball and football. And obviously football is driving all this. I think we are heading to a place because if you look at sports like wrestling or say lacrosse or things like that, you might find if you looked at the conference Big East lacrosse might include some teams that you've never would have thought would be in Big East lacrosse because they have a lacrosse team. They're not in a conference that has lacrosse. The Big 12 wrestling has teams in it that, are different in all the way. I think that's probably where it's eventually going to go. And if you're talking about adding, say, UConn and Gonzaga to men's and women's basketball only, I think that that's fine. I think that's where it's headed. And I think that's where things need to focus on is, make the money where you can make the money, make the growth where you can make the growth, and then make the other ones make sense and be competitive, and then be regional. That way you're not sending volleyball across the country to play 2 games and then come back.
So you like big sports a la carte, basically?
I think I don't know if I like ultimately, I know coming from a program you want to play your rivals and everything, right? But I do think that the powers that be on the money sports are telling us that that's not really going to happen anymore. So you probably need to get ready for the idea that, you might get to play, baseball, softball, track, tennis, all that might all play the same teams in the Big 12, right? That might be the same.
Yeah, you're not going to – there's no way that you could split it up and fracture it to where, this pocket of programs is playing in this league and this pocket's playing in this league. Because ultimately, how are you going to have Big 12 meetings if you have, 12 sports spread across, 3 conferences? That would be really a lot to keep up with and a lot to try and wrangle. I think to simplify what you're trying to say and tell me if I'm wrong is basically football and basketball need to break off and become semi-pro sports like they sort of already are, and are people kind of think the road they're going down anyways.
Yeah, and then leave everything else regional because there's going to be a time, especially when you talk about employment and all these things that are happening, in order to protect them, you're going to have to do something different. Because otherwise, if you give people who are bottom liners, and that's what this will come, a chance to get to the bottom line, okay, what do we have to do to be Title IX compliant? You have to have as many opportunities for women athletes as you do for men. Then they'll count that exact number, and then they'll get rid of everything else, and then they'll get rid of the men's sports that counterbalance it too. And then you're compliant. So as a way to protect the way that everybody knows, I think that the smaller sports, the non-revenue sports, are going to have to be much more regional and not along for the ride because football has decided to be, nationwide.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how it goes for UCLA soccer and USC baseball, and those programs are going to be trudging a bit of a longer ways during the week than they normally would be. That'll be an interesting experiment there in year number 1, and how they manage with that. Now the money will help, having those private flights and things that they might not otherwise have to give them that comfort level and not make it as much of a an exhausting trip as it may seem on paper. When you're doing it every other week or so, that's going to be, really interesting to see if that has the effect that some think that it could have, just, financially to some extent, but mostly just exhaustion levels and the amount of travel that you're going to have to do in comparison to what you normally would do. But, it definitely feels like there's something that's going to have to change. Because there are programs that are operating off of the college athletics model, and then there are clearly a couple of sports or a couple of leagues and a couple of sports that are taking this thing in another direction at 100 miles per hour, it feels like. And I don't really blame the leagues, just that that's where a lot of the money is, and that's where a lot of the safety and security is. And so it's easy for the Big Ten and the SEC to talk about they should be employees. Well, guess who's going to be making the money to be able to pay those guys and gals? Those schools, and the others, all the rest of the country, are the ones that are going, well, if suddenly we have to pay football players like this and basketball players like this, like regular average employee, you talk about COVID and what it did to programs, and I know that people probably don't blink twice if, Mercer lost their wrestling program or something, and I don't even know if Mercer has a wrestling. I'm just throwing the most random thing I could in my head as an example, but there will be some side effects and some collateral damage, no doubt about it. And it's a problem that is very much on the horizon. It seems like it's drawing closer each day. But I guess that would be one way to do it, is to split them off. There's been talks about that. I don't know what that would look like or what that would even how that would even work. But it's going to be harder here in a few years to justify a football player being the same level, and they're not right now, but if you're going to have to pay football players as if they're actual employees and full meal deal and all that. I mean, yeah, how many are going to want to do that with tennis and golf and lacrosse and soccer and swimming and diving and, all these other things? There's just simply not going to be the ability to do that or the want to do that. And, yeah, that's going to create potentially a whole lot of collateral damage. But we're not quite there yet. But it's good that people are at least, aware of it and having these conversations to try and figure out, how best we can stem that. But, yeah, I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know that anybody really knows what the solution is other than what you said at the beginning, which is breaking those off into their own deals where they're basically minor leagues. But there's a lot of people that don't like that idea either.
I don't want to – yeah, I know. But I think you have to – the cold hard reality of the situation is that if you want to protect the rest of college athletics, you have to get real about where the big money sports are going. And to say that, men's basketball recruiting and all that is the same as what's going on with men's tennis, it's not. Now, the tennis would love for it to be. I mean, they would love for it to be. But the reality is that that's not how it works, is that there's not, people breaking down their door to do that. Where NIL comes in for those sports is that you can make money on social media or whatever you can work. Look, gymnastics is not a big deal. Nobody's turning on college gymnastics and breaking television ratings, but Livy Dunn is big because of her social media presence. That's what the non-revenue sports benefit from NIL. But when it comes to, the big-time NIL that's coming into football and basketball, and now women's basketball a bit, you see what's going on with the LSU team from this past year, then I think you need to look at realistically as these are different than what you have. And it's been different for a long time, and the attempt to cling on to what was is not realistically dealing with what is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's already obvious. I mean, that's clear that this is not what it once was and is not going to ever be that again. I think we can all agree on that point of it. As far as what it looks like, here in the future, I think that's, clearly the conversation we're having and, what a lot of people are wondering about, including the people in charge making the decisions. But they're also not fully in charge, as we've seen. There's, some pleading for help from the federal government to try and, help make some of these decisions for them or create, some barriers or whatnot to try and make the picture a little bit clearer for all involved. But yeah, I mean, it's heading down a path, but we're about to hit that tunnel and it gets dark, and I don't know what's on the other side of that thing. That's all I know. That's what it feels like to me, is that you see that tunnel coming, it's going to get dark for a second, but what's on the other end of that? No idea. And so, I think that's what, again, a lot of people are trying to figure out at the moment. And, as a college athletics fan and just a sports fan, I love the setup, but I also absolutely understand the need for compensation, NIL. And on that, John Wilner just posted that California Bill 252, which would create a revenue sharing arrangement between athletics departments and players, has passed the Assembly. And now we'll be on to the Senate. So there's just another little thing, along the way of some of these decisions that are being made that, has to do with revenue sharing, which is a big buzzy term that we're going to only hear more and more and more about, I would imagine, moving forward.
Now the interesting thing will be to see these schools in California admit what their revenue is.
Well, that's what's going to be really interesting. Yeah, is okay, and then what does that look like? And then if you're having to do that, but the other states don't have those rules, then what kind of what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
Like if USC and UCLA are having to play by revenue sharing, but Michigan and Ohio State aren't, you know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? And what does that mean exactly? I don't know.
It benefits the athletes and not
absolutely
completely. And not necessarily the university unless they figure out a way to make everybody whole and happy again. But that means that there will be robbing Peter to play Paul out of that. Like that's how that will work. And I'm not sure that, look, everybody if you're a state university, you have to share your revenue and all that stuff. But what will get packaged into losses and costs and all these different things, and what revenue will there be to share? And how much of that, I don't know how much of the pie that they're saying the student athletes should get and all that. But that'll be interesting when it comes out on the other end of how much revenue are they talking about getting, especially when you're talking about spreading it out over, I don't know, everybody? Is this everybody or is this revenue sports?
Honestly, it's like I have no idea. Nobody does. And it's really not that part of the story that's all that interesting to me. You know, like I don't care about the dollar figures, the percentages, none of that. I just want to know, like, when is my team playing and how are they playing? How are they fielding a roster? Are they, you know, if they're paying people, fine. But, you know, while there would be, you know, some, I guess it would be great to have like some sort of more of a clear look in on kind of how it all operates, rather than sort of where it's just we get an article every 3 weeks about how shady it is. Like if it was a little bit more clear, and the result of that is, or that's a result of, you know, revenue sharing arrangements or whatever, that would be great. But, you know, in terms of the pie and how much they're getting, all that, like that's where I just kind of lose interest, because that's not even a college athletics kind of a thing anymore. It's more of a business thing, and that's not really my bag. So I know we talk sports business on here, and it's definitely part of what's going on with college athletics. But yeah, that's a different conversation.
It'd be a much easier show to do if we didn't have to. I'll tell you that. Not that it's not like I'm digging a ditch here, but even still, my brain wouldn't have to ask as many questions.
I mean, that's what the athletic directors are getting paid millions to figure out, not me. I mean, I'm just here to watch the games, and you know what? Talk about like the cool NIL deal that somebody's getting and the recruiting thing and all that, and obviously all of it, you know, leads into the bigger overall conversation of what does this all look like. But, you know, how they get there and what the government does and all that, like that's where I just kind of waking me up when it's over, kind of a feeling, you know.
Kendall Kaut, SicEm365.com, joins us next to talk about the addition of RayJ Dennis, what it means and what could be next, and what the Baylor roster looks like going forward in 2023. This is 365 Sports.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe, been in business since 1943. Their new location is on the South Loop. That's Loop 340 east of I-35 or Highway 6. The new facility, more than twice the size of their old one, allowing them to carry new inventory as well as higher quantities of inventory in a much more organized fashion. In addition to standard long lengths and tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now carries shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut, which will save time for anyone who doesn't need or can't haul the long lengths. 2,500 square foot showroom with 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you're a professional contractor or a weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster, more efficient, easy drive lanes around the building, much more room to get your trailer loaded. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger. PioneerBoys.com.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Kendall Count, Sikkim365.com, joins us now, and this Baylor Athletics segment is brought to you by Richard Carr Motors, Buick GMC Cadillac, people you can count on. And Kendall, Baylor's had seemingly more questions than answers when it comes to what the 2023 roster is going to look like. And as we've come now here to June 1st, and now that the May 31st deadline is passed on staying in the NBA draft or not, they've got another big one, and that Adam Flagler not coming back wasn't expected to. I don't think by the staff at all. I don't think anybody was holding out hope for him because he's 23 years old, ready to go on with his professional career wherever that may be. But they need to do some things in the transfer portal. RayJ Dennis really kind of solidifies who they're going to be guard-oriented going forward, doesn't he?
He does, Paul. RayJ, an incredible offensive player, the MAC player of the year last season, got his three-point percentage up from 31% to 36% last year on 58 more attempts. So really good offensive numbers. Ken Palm, MAC player of the year last year as well, Paul. So really good offensive player you can plug and play and count on to be a 15-plus point per game scorer.
Where does he kind of fit in the overall puzzle now, Kendall? Where are we? You've got the Adam Flagler decision that's official. We know Jalen Bridges is not necessarily returning to Baylor, but he's not going to be in the NBA draft. So that leads maybe back to Waco, maybe to semi-pro or something along those lines. With the addition of RayJ Dennis, how do you view this roster at the moment?
As you mentioned, Craig, the big deal going forward will be, does Jalen Bridges come back? I get the sense that probably has about a week or so left. With realignment, we always think, is today or is it a week or so? So I'm always cognizant of trying to be too quick with my timeline. So I think within about a week, we'll know with Jalen Bridges. I expect he'll elect to return ultimately. We'll see what he decides to do. I know Baylor's going to have good NIL opportunities for him as they've been really on top of the ball lately compared to maybe where they were even a year ago. So I would expect him to come back. If he does not, we'll find out, does Baylor take Grant Nelson from North Dakota State, or do they take the kid from Tennessee, Oliver N? I'm not sure, or Olivier N, I'm not sure how to pronounce the kid's last name, but had a good year at Tennessee as well. They'll need to get somebody who can plug and play and be an offensive force. The big question for me next year, Craig, is how good can Baylor be as a three-point shooting team? So electric from the perimeter with Deontay George, LJ Cryer, and Adam Flagler last season. I think there'll be a big question mark about whether Baylor's guards can shoot to be as effective as they need to be offensively, be a championship caliber program.
Is this team one that you kind of have to look at not 2023, but 2024 is where if they can keep the nucleus, those guys who have eligibility together, that's where they can really make hay, because they're going to be relying on Jacoby Walter, who's a true freshman and very good, a 5-star player, and early reports on him are pretty good, Kendall, as you know, but that's still a lot to rely on a freshman to get you to the mountaintop. Texas is going to be very good. Kansas is going to be very good. Houston's going to be very good. Where do you see them fitting in with their roster based on those teams.
Right, Paul, if I had to rank the Big 12 currently, which you guys can do, so I'll do it.
Yeah.
I have Baylor number 4 in the conference. I think KU is clearly the best team in the league with Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough's return. KJ Adams, I think, will be a great defender at the 4, and DeJuan Harris is an elite point guard both defensively and in terms of how he creates. I think Texas, on paper right now, better than Baylor. Tyrese Hunter comes back. They get a big addition from the NBA draft with Dylan Mitchell deciding to come back to school. And then Max Abmas is one of the best scorers last season. At Oral Roberts, that's a good team. And I think Houston's still a little better than Baylor, obviously. Former Bear LJ Cryer elects to return to his hometown and play for the Cougars. So I think those 3 teams are better on paper. I think Baylor slots in at the 4 spot. UConn won the title last year as the 4 seed, so it's not out of the realm of possibility if you're in that number 4, number 5 seed range that you can win a national championship, just a lot harder. And so I think Baylor's championship opportunity next year, I don't quite see it right now for the Bears. I know there are people on staff that feel like this team defensively, with some schematic changes they'll make, can be so much better that'll make up for the decline they'll make inevitably offensively, losing Keontae George, Flags, and LJ Cryer. But I think 2024 looks more like a championship contending team to me, especially if Trey Johnson elects to come to Waco.
Based on just kind of the review of things with the season now, so far in the rear view, it seems like it was ages ago at this point. But, with the benefit of hindsight, what do you think the staff has kind of zeroed in on as far as why some things, particularly defense, wasn't maybe what they thought it was cracked up to be entering last year?
Craig, I think they looked at scheme and probably thought some of their guys weren't real long. LJ Cryer, great offensive player, not a real lengthy guy. Flag measured a little bit shorter at the combine, not a ton of length. Keontae George, great offensive player, not a lockdown defender. And then Flo Thamba didn't have the best 5th year that he could have had on campus, as I'm sure so many people that take a 5th year in college could attest that that's a tough thing, I'm sure, to do. And then Jonathan Chachua was limited laterally. So the hope is that everyday John is back laterally, that what you add from a VCU transfer gives you a great defensive player, that those that RayJ Davis can play with a 6'7" wingspan, as Aaron Ashley Hahn just noted, means the defense gets better. And on top of that, I think what Baylor hopes is some schematic changes they can make, whether they stay no middle, whether they make some adjustments. They'll have their foreign tour to France. And I think you look back at that 2020 season, so many guys, Craig, mentioned to me when I talked to Davion Mitchell or Jared Butler or Mark Vidal, that trip to Italy they took before that season really helped them grow as people and help them develop a culture. There have been some studies that have been done that say, hey, when teams take foreign tours, they tend to overperform their preseason expectations. So I think Baylor's very optimistic about what that foreign tour could do, because I think they thought the culture maybe slipped a little bit last season.
Yeah, and we actually, Bill Peterson spoke at the Academic All-Stars a couple weeks ago. He mentioned that to me as something that they were looking forward to, because it's you essentially, it's not even about the basketball. They hardly play basketball. It's just about the team building.
I think that's exactly right, Paul. Baylor's going to have some basketball opportunities. They'll play 3 or 4 games. I had it mentioned to me by somebody today that I talked to in the program of, hey, we went on our foreign tour. We implemented a new defense. It was awful on the foreign tour. Came back, lost to Washington that they had no business losing to, and then suddenly they won 23 straight games. So it'll be a process for them to get a new scheme or a new system if they would like to go that route. But I wouldn't expect the defense to play schematically exactly the same way it played last season, even if they stick no middle for some degree. And the personnel is going to be so different that it'll take, I think, a little bit of time. But I think Baylor can legitimately say this next season, even if they're not as good as they've been in the 20, 21, or 22 seasons, which is an unrealistic expectation, I think, for this collection of guys, they'll at least be peaking at the end of the year, as opposed to last season when it felt like Baylor's best basketball when we played in December or January.
So, Kendall, going back to Adam Flagler and the contributions he made to the program, you had a tweet yesterday, or I guess about a day ago, that was talking about, where he fits in the all-time rankings, and I don't think you've followed up. If you did, I didn't see it on exactly where he would fit in that pecking order, but can you just kind of give a recap of, the place he's left, post what he did at Baylor, just the niche that he carved out, I guess, is a better way to put it. Can you kind of put into words the meaning that Adam Flagler had for Baylor basketball?
He had an absolutely phenomenal career in Waco, Craig. I think he was the best player on last year's team. James Akinjo got the All-Big 12 first team honor. Flags got the second one. But I think if you talk to most people in the program, they thought that Flags was the best player on that team. I would agree with that. Clearly was the best player last year as well. So you have 2 straight seasons where he's the best player, including on a number 1 seed, and then this past season on a team that was the number 9 overall team entering the NCAA tournament. He's the shot against Gonzaga that is the dagger when Baylor's up 13. Vidal gets the block. Jared Butler passed it ahead on the wing, hits the 3. And I talked to multiple people that said, in that moment, there was no doubt luck for us that we were going to win the national championship. In my all-time list, I have Flagler number 5 in the Scott Drew era. I think Jared Butler, Davion Mitchell, Jonathan Motley, and Lacerius Dunn as the former Big 12 all-time leading scorer rank higher than Flags does for me. I think you'd make a case maybe he should be number 4. But I think those 3 with Motley, Butler, Mitchell, and I think certainly Dunn before his senior season maybe left a little bit of a bitter taste in some people's mouths, but I think time is rectified. That puts him at 5 for me. But ranking, Maceo Teague, Torian Prince, Corey Jefferson, Mark Vidal, so many other guys who put on a Baylor uniform gets very tough in that range. Pierre Jackson as well. But I think for me, with what he did with winning, that should be the ultimate question. It's still so tough to analyze basketball, analytics, watching the game. Ultimately, it comes down to, did you win? And Adam Flagler was a consistent winner. And when he leaves Baylor, I think you can honestly say he was a proven winner, and he just won so many games. He left the program in a better shape than he found it in. And that's all you can really ask for the amount of time he's been in Waco. And it was a great time for Baylor and a great time for him as well.
Do you put him top 5 Scott Drew players all time?
I do, Paul. I think he's number 5 for me. I think I've viewed Maceo Teague more highly than I did before, just because I think we really underrated how valuable his defense was, because we all knew how good Mark was, how good Davion was defensively, and the respect Jared got for blocking shots his junior season. I think Maceo Teague has a case to be number 5, but I put Adam number 5 because he had to be the lead dog his last year on campus. And the year before, I thought he was Baylor's best player, too. So for me, Adam Flagler, number 5 Scott Drew player of all time.
Kendall, I think we've covered a lot of the bases, but you mentioned realignment there at the very beginning. I know it's been a crazy thing, especially on our boards and all of that, but would just love your general thoughts on not necessarily all of the rumors and innuendo and all those things, but what do you think about a commissioner who has a focus obviously on basketball, feels like he can maximize it a bit more, and what do you think when you hear rumors about the potential of adding a Gonzaga or adding a UConn, for example, and some of the options that might be on the table?
I'm intrigued by it, Craig. The thing that starts to worry me, though, is, okay, if Baylor's going to be in a conference, or the Big 12 is going to suddenly have possibly Colorado, Arizona State, Utah, Connecticut, Gonzaga, I mean, is it really a conference if you have 18 teams playing basketball? I guess you play everybody once, but it feels more like a scheduling alliance than anything that's really wieldly at that point. But I do get it. It'd be fun to play Gonzaga every season. It'd be fun to play Connecticut every season if you're Baylor. It's good to see all these teams. But there is some numbers. I think you hit the top end range and say, is this worth it? I think if you're the Big 12, you feel like, look, Gonzaga and Connecticut should be there on the basketball side. Those can wait. I think it's incumbent upon the Big 12 to see and say, is Colorado coming? Is Arizona coming? And if those two schools come, you can then reassess, is Arizona State as a football member and a basketball member going to come? Is that worth more value? Would Oregon and Washington come for a second? So I like the possibility of Gonzaga as a basketball-only member. I think I floated this a long time ago before I'd even heard about it. But with the possibility of getting those 4 Pac-12 schools, whether that happens or not, who knows? I think you can wait a little bit on Gonzaga. I think you can wait a little bit on UConn. I'd like it if that were 14 with those schools. But I'm really starting to get maybe a little bit of ick about an 18-team conference if it has all those schools in it.
Yeah, that would be unwieldy.
Yeah, I think, if anything, the likelihood of 4 from the Pac is probably the lowest percentage. So maybe it could all even out. But I'm with you. It's interesting. I'm glad I asked you that because just yesterday I was looking at just conference rankings and I was like, golly, the SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to be at 16 teams. And I was just thinking about how crazy that's going to be. And you're right. Like at some point, because I had the same thought, I was like, they're practically like an entire league, by themselves at this stage. So, yeah, what's too many to where you're not even what could be considered a conference anymore? You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree completely on that, Craig. And the way I view this, too, is, those same schools that were excited about adding Texas and OU, if they can betray a 100-year rivalry in Baylor, if they can betray TCU like they've done before, they'll have no trouble betraying Mississippi State someday and telling Rutgers you didn't belong in the Big Ten in the first place. So, once you start letting 16 or 18 teams in your league, you got to wonder how long will you be in a 16 or 18 team league. The TV deals come up eventually. I just don't think those are the kind of numbers that they sign long-term deals with. If you go to the market again, I don't think there'll be an 18-team league for long if the Big 12 goes that route. Especially think the SEC's days of a 16-team league, the Big 10 days of the 16-team league are not going to be long either. I don't expect Ohio State and Michigan are going to want to keep playing Wisconsin when they can play USC, Alabama, Auburn, and Texas. So I think we're headed to a world where college sports becomes the worst version of the pros, but what can you do? Enjoy the time we have for right now. And this is, I think, kind of the last of the golden era of college football, because I think college basketball is still in a great place, but college football to me just gets seedier and seedier every day with how the money dictates everything for these conferences.
Kendall, that was very fatalistic.
No, he's right. I mean, that's what a lot of
people
people feel that way. Yeah, a lot of people are worried about that. So, yeah, absolutely.
It was Paul and Craig, and I've been somebody who said I want to see the kids get paid, but I think there's got to be a structure where the player movement isn't what it is, where the salaries make a little bit more sense for what happens for the players, and they know what they're actually getting money from. And then we've got to get to a world where UCLA Rutgers is not going to be prime time on NBC in November, but for now, the finest of New Jersey, and I guess the most attractive in California, can gather around their television sets and watch 7 and 5 programs play.
Right. Hey, Rutgers claims New York City, apparently. So
that was the funniest thing of all time.
Right, yeah.
Kendall Count, Sick'em365.com. Kendall, thanks so much.
Appreciate it, fellas.
There's Kendall. Yeah, read his stuff on Sick'em365.com. If you're not a premium member, you can do that.
No, he's a really good basketball writer. If you're a Baylor basketball fan, like, they're legit. There's no reason to not subscribe just for him and Ashley, and not trying to not mention anybody else. Like, Jack takes great pictures, and a lot of other people do good things. But, like, yeah, he and Ashley do a great job if you're a Baylor basketball fan on kind of getting you your fix, more often than not. And, glad to have them on the same team. But it's funny because when he brought that up about the big conferences, I just kind of just said it, but I felt that way. I was looking at the standings yesterday, and I was like, golly, there's going to be 16 teams in this conference in the SEC. And the Big Ten is as well, but it did make me think. It's kind of eerie that he said that, because it did make me think of, like, gosh, what do you get to? I mean, if when it gets to 18 or 20, like, what even is this? It's not really a conference, is it? And
it's a league.
It's a league. I mean, even the pros, the NFL tapped out at 16, and there's not really any signs of expansion on the horizon for them, because, I think another part of it, like he just mentioned, is those 32 owners don't want to split the pie another couple of ways. And I think, you're going to get to that point here as well of, like, okay, get to a 20-team conference, but then, at what point, and I've seen others bring this up previously as well, at what point do the top 8 of them go, wait a second, we don't need you anymore either. We're set. We just realized we can break off from you. And now we're, in another whole, spectrum of money making. And I agree. At some point, you're like, okay, what's enough? But I do think that, to his point, I don't think the Big 12's adding like 6 schools either. I think it's something to where it would be like 2 to 4. I don't know how on board even the ADs would be with, 6 new schools when you've already added 4. That just seems like a lot and probably too much. So, if you can pluck a couple from the pack, and then those basketball schools in UConn and Gonzaga, that'd be one thing to get you to 16 and just be on board with everybody else. But, anything beyond that gets a little bit weird. And that's like, you bring up you didn't bring it up, but when people bring up the Big Ten and like, well, they want Oregon and they want Notre Dame and they want Washington and it's like, okay, so at what point do they run out of room and run out of money to split? And that's what you got to keep in mind as well with all this expansion stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, and we'll talk about minicamp or OTAs, whatever they call it. I guess it's OTAs.
By the way,
and then minicamp.
We completely glossed over, and I had it actually and I got sidetracked with the conference marks, but we didn't bring up that Baylor's got a basketball game that was announced.
Oh, yeah, against Auburn.
Yeah.
In the Pentagon again.
Going to be opening up against Auburn. And let me get the details here. At the Sanford Pentagon, which is where they played Gonzaga. When was that?
It was last year.
Last
year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't remember exactly. But, yeah, they played them last year. In Sioux Falls. So they will be back there for this upcoming season at the Sanford Pentagon and squaring off with the Auburn Tigers. And I was trying to see, November 7th will be the date for that. So for you fans that want to go check that one out, November 7th, Auburn, Baylor, Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, and that is more or less, I'm going to say more or less, that's an NIL game. That's a game that the player, they book it, play, the players get paid. I think that teams will do stuff like that every year coming in now because it doesn't.
Smart.
Yeah, and it could be pretty decent money for everybody on your squad. Like I said, when we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. This is 365 Sports.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Specializing in Italian-American cuisine. The first store opened in Oregon, Ohio, on Star Avenue, founded by an Italian immigrant, Gianmarco, in 1978. Marco's Pizza credits its franchises with its dough, the success, the 3-cheese blend, pizza sauce, that's growing strong. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza with now 5 locations in the Waco area, Belmead and China Spring, Woodway, Hewitt, and Robinson. There were none just a handful of years ago. And then Bob Mock, the owner, who's been in the pizza business for many years, said, I want to bring a Marco's into the Waco area, and he did. The menu includes, of course, different styles of pizza, subs, wings, salads, cheesy bread, Cine squares, pizza bowls, and brownies. Unusual specialty pizzas found at various times in the Marco's Pizza menu are chicken Florentine, pepperoni magnifico, sausage magnifico, spicy fresco, double pepperoni spicy fresco pizzas. The signature ingredient of the fresco pizzas is Marco's special, authentic Italian pepper relish. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott fires, caught, Lamb, touchdown.
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, joins us now, 365 Sports. And Mickey, it's the OTA times and mini camp and all that. And this is where would you call this maybe like the first wave of your academic work on the season? Because even though you can't make final decisions from this, it is interesting to see how they plug in guys and how people react to certain spots and different things that they try in these periods.
Well, I think from our standpoint, the most valuable thing is you kind of see where they want guys lining up. If they drafted a defensive end and they want them at linebacker, or if it's an offensive tackle, do they want them at guard? Things like that, because the amount of physical activity in these OTAs has gone down measurably to almost you might as well be playing powder puff football. There is no contact whatsoever, no hands or anything. So that part you can see. And from a team standpoint, Paul, it's more about assignment, being assignment ready by time training camp comes. So where you're lining up, how you run a play, what your assignment is during that play. It's more that than any sort of football. So it's kind of hard to see. I mean, I can see if guys can run. I can see if, cornerbacks have good hips and things like that. But as for drills, it's pretty limited these days because the coaches are sure afraid of getting fined, as Mike McCarthy has been twice already over the past 2 years. And I see where Bill Belichick got fined this week for holding the meetings a little too long.
That's such a Belichick thing to do, seemingly, Mickey. The left guard is kind of interesting to me because the Cowboys have a plan of what they ideally want, and then they kind of have to deal with the reality of Terrence Steele will be back from injury, hopefully at week 1, but I don't think that they're 100% counting on that, and they'd be kind of foolish to. And then, Tyron Smith is there and back, but we know Tyron Smith's injury history. So what they're doing at left guard and lining up people in the offensive line, to me, is the most interesting thing to see if they're, what they actually have in that formula there.
Yeah, they've got to come up with a solution there on how they want to go. But let's start it this way, Paul. If you tell me, wow, my team didn't make the playoffs because of the left guard, then I got a feeling something else went wrong during the season, right? So again, it's the left guard. It's not a wide receiver. It's not the quarterback. It's not a cornerback. It's a guard. And if you look at the Cowboys' history, they've had pretty good luck with guards that were undrafted free agents that ended up starting for them. Now, having said that, with Terrence Steele not playing at this point, still rehabbing, basically they've lined up Tyler Smith at left tackle, Matt Forniak at left guard, Biadasz at center. Zach Martin is rehabbing something. So they've got Josh Ball at right guard and Tyron Smith at right tackle. Terrence Steele has said that no one's mentioned to him one word about moving over to guard. So it seems to me if he's ready to go, he's the right tackle, and we'll see what happens with Tyron Smith. But I've also been told, and it sure seems that way, that they want Tyler Smith play left tackle. So that might mean Tyron Smith is the swing tackle, late in his career. So we'll see how it works out once they actually get into training camp, and probably won't be able to answer your question until, the first or second preseason game.
Mickey, I know that a lot's been made about the Cowboys and the salary cap money they'll be receiving from Zeke Elliott. The release now that today is June 1st and, the post-June 1st money will be coming in. Do you see any of that money being spent on something fun for Cowboys fans, or that is now their plan is to spend that in-house and get those extensions done?
Yeah, I think the extensions first. I don't think, as I wrote yesterday in my column, they're not going out because they won the lottery and buy a vet, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to basically, I would think, use that extra money. And again, it's $11 million. So it's not like you just inherited $100 million, right, against the cap. It's 11. And basically, you can use it to get Trayvon Diggs signed to an extension. You can use it for signing CeeDee Lamb at some point during the season to an extension to reduce his 2024 cap hit of $17 million. You can use it to help if you want to extend Dak. Or what about extending the center, Biadasz, who's in his final year? And by the way, he was in the Pro Bowl this year too. I think everybody sort of forgets that. So I think there's other ways they can use that money. And it's not like they're sitting here, Paul, and going, oh, wow, we got $11 million. No, this was part of the plan. And I think part of the plan was, at least if nothing else, this money could basically fund their rookie class. But they've got that done already. They've got $10 million before they get the money tomorrow, but they like to start the season with $8 to $10 million under the cap for operating purposes during the season. So to me, I would think that money priority-wise would be used on extensions, not to go and and get these big treasures like DeAndre Hopkins that I'm sure everybody's thinking about.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I think there's a bunch of teams that want DeAndre Hopkins, and it's going to come down to probably he's going to the Chiefs. I mean,
and it's going to cost them. They got to have salary cap space, right?
Yeah.
It's not a matter of who wants them; it's who can afford them, or what does he want to play for. And we're also talking a guy that missed 6 games last year, suspended for PEDs. Didn't want to play the final 2 games of the season so he could remain healthy. Now, he had a decent year, and he's had good years, and he's still pretty darn good. But again, at some point, you got to say, okay, how much does he want? Because it's not going to be a 1-year deal, I bet, unless he can't find something and he has to settle. So, when the Cowboys want to re-sign some of their guys, at some point they got to re-sign Parsons. You got to be careful on how you spend your money at this moment without looking towards the future.
Mickey, I do think it's one of those things that because agents do throw out the Cowboys name, players throw out the Cowboys name a lot because there is a seeming myth now around the Cowboys and, they'll get involved because Jerry Jones won't be able to resist DeAndre Hopkins. Well, for the past decade, he's resisted a lot of people, a lot that have not come to the Cowboys, that have, floated out. I mean, Earl Thomas ran in the locker room, Mickey. I mean,
exactly.
All those things. The Cowboys have resisted all that. So it's not what they do, right or wrong, season to season. Some years maybe it would have helped them. Some years it wouldn't have. But that's not their MO anymore. And I do think that the fans have buy into it. And then they also want, for the Cowboys, he would come for less. No. There's no less. Nobody loves them that much that they're coming for less.
It's always this is since free agency began, so we're about 30 years in right now. This has always been an agent ploy. Oh, the Cowboys are interested to make sure some other teams go, oh, we can't let the Cowboys get that guy. We got to get him, and we'll overpay to make sure the Cowboys don't get him. And that's always kind of been the philosophy out there among agents. Right away say the Cowboys are interested. I'm pretty sure they're not interested in this one. And I'll tell you what, when they were in the OTAs today and the guys, the receivers were on the sideline, kneeling down in a threesome was CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup, who right now looks like the Michael Gallup of old. That's a pretty nice threesome right there that they wish they could have had last year at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Mickey, do you envision them bringing in more than one kicker to compete with Vizcaino?
I think at least one, probably a veteran guy that has some experience, and then kind of see how that goes. But I would imagine at some point, just like last year, we're going to see some kicking competition in training camp, and maybe even in the preseason games to see who wins the job. And the problem is there's not a lot of availability out there, and what's available are veterans that other teams have thumbed their nose up at. And they'll probably want a bunch of money. Now, the other thing is you need a guy that's pretty good at kickoffs too. One of the reasons Robbie Gould is available, number one, he was supposed to make like $3-4 million this year, was the fact that if he's your kicker, you need a kickoff guy. And that means your punter needs to be able to kick off. So it's kind of a twofold thing. And the Cowboys aren't the only team out there needing. I went through everybody's roster last week, and there's about 7 or 8 teams that could say, I need a kicker. And they may have one on the roster, but it's an unproven one. And again, that includes the 2 teams that used draft choices this year. How do you know how those rookies are going to kick? And you may get to the start of the season and go, okay, I might be able to keep this guy on the roster, but I need somebody else. And the pool of the somebody else's is pretty limited. And I saw where McManus got released last week by Denver, but the reason he got released is he only hit 78% of his field goals last year. Now, they did bring in Brett Maher for a workout, didn't sign him, but if we eliminate playoff game against Tampa Bay, he's the best kicker out there right now. And if not for that game, say the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs, he probably would have been signed to a $3 million deal this year. And then, unfortunately for him, he missed those extra points in the Tampa Bay playoff game, and now that hangs over his head.
Yeah, Mickey, I was just about to ask you, Brett Maher, is that you take away the playoff game, and holy cow, this was great. So if Brett Maher is over that, then bring Brett Maher back. Solve your problem easily. I mean that.
Well, I think you kind of look at it, and who knows when the yips hit and when they don't, right? And if he's over it, if he's not over it, but to me, it's worth a look-see. And again, they're going to give Tristan Vizcaino an opportunity. Like today, these last 2 OTAs from, I think it was last week, 35 to 47, he missed 1. And then from 50, he missed. Today, he missed 1, maybe 47, something like that. And then, or it was a little shorter than that. And then from 51, he missed miserably. And the weird thing is when he was hitting field goals 30 and 40 yards, really showed some pop in his foot. And then from 51, it was like he just didn't hit it well. And, if he would have hit the one from 51 like he did from 37, it would have been good. So, again, they're going to have to keep an eye on him and see. They're giving him an opportunity, but at some point there's going to be competition.
Yeah. Here's my theory on Brett Maher. I don't know how long it will work and how people will figure it out. But what the Cowboys should do, since he seems to really struggle on field goals that are shorter and extra points, is get 3 false starts. And then every extra point he kicks should be 50 yards, because when it's that, he's money.
Well, field goals weren't his problem, right? Yeah. It was the extra point. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, well, just go for 2. Yeah. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
And from a field goal standpoint, if you don't have a good field goal kicker, well, okay, score touchdowns. Don't worry about field goals.
Absolutely. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Paul, have a good day. See ya.
That's Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. And Off the Radar is next, by the way. And we've got SEC schedule news.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
And we've got SEC field storming penalties.
Yeah, that's less of that was much ado about nothing. The threats of we'll strip a home game, which we knew was BS to begin with. That's really BS based on what the penalties will be. But yeah, we got some resolution on the SEC scheduling as far as the number of conference opponents. We'll have that next here on 365 Sports.
I have a story to share about Dr. Steve Childress in Stonewood Dental. I saw this in one of the reviews online. He said, I have an amazing hygienist who took care of me, erased my anxiety from horrible dentist experience over 5 years ago. I actually never set foot in a dentist office after that until I saw Dr. Steve Childress. I needed to have my teeth deep cleaned, and that was the exact procedure that led me to my horrible previous experience before. As high as my anxiety was, Dr. Childress, his staff, determined to change my perception of dental work and make sure I was comfortable throughout every visit. I now have a temporary flipper for my teeth. I'm in great shape. And if you have ever been through any kind of traumatic experience with your dental work because of your dentist and or because you haven't taken care of your dental work, Dr. Steve Childress is phenomenal. So is his staff, hygienist, the front door when you walk in, at the scheduling, everything. Filing insurance, and of course, Dr. Steve Childress and the dentist. Dr. Steve Childress, Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
It's the Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. You can now get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars and Laramies, or 2.9% for 72 months. That's right, hurry in. Offer ends May 31st.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals, It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome back into 365 Sports. Hope you're having a good day. We've certainly motored on through these almost 2 hours now at this point. Still got another hour to go. But we do have some SEC scheduling news. Been the big debate about what the conference might do with the scheduling moving forward. And there was the talk, of course, of expanding, like everyone else has at this point, to a 9-game conference schedule. There was the talk about sticking to an 8-game conference schedule, like has been par for the course. And, you know, some talk about kicking the can down the road. And now we know what they're going to do. And, well, at least in 2024, we know what they're going to do. In 2024, when Oklahoma and Texas join the conference and the league becomes 16 teams, the SEC will play the exact same amount of conference games they're already playing. 8-game schedule is what the SEC is locked into for 2024, so no change, even with the addition of 2 teams. Greg Sankey, and bear with me because I've tried to gather the little news and notes, you know, the tidbits from all the various reporters who are covering this at the moment to try to fill you in as best I can on some of the details, but there's a lot of just, tweet after tweet after tweet to try and see what's new and what's not. So here's what I've been able to gather so far outside of the fact that it's going to stay at 8 games. It's just for 2024, but there will be no divisions. We already knew that. 16 teams, only an 8-league game schedule. The short answer as to why they are not going to 9 games was there was not the votes to go to 9. I think this was from Ross Dellinger, but like I said, bear with me as I'm trying to copy and get all these. A majority of the 14 schools was needed, which would have been 8 votes, Paul, out of 14. Mm-hmm. And the belief is that there were only 5 votes for the 9-game schedule. So 3 short of what they needed to get to a majority for the 9-game schedule. Now, I guess you could, go back through and parse through on who said what, when, and what their opinions were. We know that Oklahoma and Texas, and I don't know if did we touch on the fact that Del Conte let it be known that Texas was in favor of 9 games? I didn't know if we'd brought that up or not. But Oklahoma's also on board for 9 games, but they don't count. They don't count right now. So next year when they revisit this, perhaps you can add 2 more to that total, but that would still be short of the majority. So, 5 votes when they needed 9, and so the SEC is staying at 8 games for 2024. The schedules for 2024 will be released on the SEC Network on June the 14th. It will not include the dates. It will only be the matchups themselves. The league says it will preserve the primary and secondary rivalries with their scheduling. And also, let's see, it was apparently unanimous on deciding to move this compromising. Okay, I guess it was unanimous to basically kick the can down the road. Let's not keep fighting over it. Let's kick the can down the road to next year. As far as choosing the 8 opponents for each team, Greg Sankey says that they will rely on fairness and balance as well as traditional rivalries. So there you have it, 2024, 8 SEC games. We'll know the opponents on June 14th on SEC Network, and they will preserve primary and secondary rivalries. So there you have it. There's the answer to the nation's biggest question at the moment.
Yeah, so that means that Texas, well, if they preserve primary and secondary rivalries, they're going to play
Oklahoma.
Well, A&M's secondary rival is South Carolina, right?
I guess at the moment it is, yeah.
Yeah, so
but I think that changes when you add a couple teams in there.
Yeah, you have to change it. So yeah, there you go. So they'll play Texas in that year. They probably won't play Georgia, and won't do that again because that would be funny. You know,
if it's no divisions though,
yeah,
would A&M's rival be LSU?
Well, that's their primary rival right now.
Okay.
I think, if it's like it was South Carolina, I think that changes now to Texas and Oklahoma. I mean,
it's
you have to factor them in somewhere, right? And I think it would be silly to have them like, oh, okay, Oklahoma's playing Kentucky, and Texas, you get South Carolina. Like, I mean, the matchups there, it's the matchup everybody wants to see at this point. In regards to people in this state, Texas and Texas A&M. So, yeah, I mean, that would be the big shocker, though, as they announce it. And it's, I guess A&M's playing LSU in South Carolina, and Texas is playing whoever they would be playing out at Oklahoma. And then I guess that does answer it, though. If you got two, who is your second? Oklahoma would make sense with Missouri, I would think. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the full list of the teams are, because I think that was out there at one point, and I didn't memorize that of like what the speculated matchups were going to be.
I'm just thinking like Arkansas though, because that's a rival, and they go out and did at Jerry World and everything.
Arkansas would make sense.
Yeah.
A&M and Arkansas was a Jerry World matchup there for a little while. Yeah, I mean Oklahoma, Missouri because of that Big 12 connection, the history there, but Arkansas because they're neighbors. But Texas OU, we know, will be one of them. So, yeah, that's going to be part of filling it in, and I'm sure there's a lot of discussion on that. But, yes, and I did see where Brandon Marcello, who we had on the show yesterday, did add the SEC will play 8 games for at least one more season, and Texas and A&M are expected to play in 2024. So, Texas, A&M, and Oklahoma, that makes sense. I don't know who OU's secondary would be, like I said, but – what are your thoughts? I think it sucks, honestly. I think that
Just
I like
do it.
to have it the same. Okay, here's the deal. I understand to an extent why. If it's purely the money thing, even though you're making more money than almost everybody at this stage, and your new deal's about to kick in, a new deal that you agreed to previously, mind you, but this has to only be over money because I don't think there's another valid reason for why you don't do this. And spare me, like I said yesterday, that we play so much more tougher teams over and over that we can't possibly play a ninth game. And I don't think many people with real functioning brains are trying to make that argument. I just know I've seen that before. Yeah. It's like, well, our 8 is equal to your 9. I call BS on that because it's not the case necessarily every year, depending on how you get drawn up. But I'd like just a status quo, but what are your thoughts just ultimately one more year and, who knows beyond that?
Yeah, Greg Sankey did say pretty sure a long-term schedule plan will be developed for 2025.
Okay, good.
So that's probably when it's coming because, they cannot sit here and stand, much longer on not playing 9 games. It's going to make them look ridiculous, and their reasoning is just going to be, well, it's not going to hold water.
If you're talking about super leagues, how are you going to have a super league, but you're not going to play a super league type of schedule,
And look, you decided to be a 16-team league. You could have left everything alone. You could have told when Oklahoma and Texas picked up the phone and said, hey, what's up? You could have been like, nothing. Sorry, this is not what we want to do. This is where we see our model. No, you've decided to chase the money, and the money's going to be there, and ESPN will make you whole on that. I promise you that. Like, that is just because they don't have guarantees right now. They should be playing 9 games. This is one of the first SEC, and it's not like gonna undo 25 years of dominance and
right. No, I know where you're going.
But this is one of their first little missteps where what you're doing does not make sense,
except for financially. If you want to play that game.
But even then, what are we talking about here?
Well, if you're the baddest dude on the block and you remind everybody constantly that you're the baddest dude on the block and you show them the rings to say that you're the baddest dude on the block and then somebody else comes up and wants to challenge you and then you're like, nah, and I know it's not quite a great comparison, but, I mean, there's a lot of tough talk that comes out of there. And the fact that you're going to be the one conference that's playing one less conference game, I don't think that holds up over the long term. So I think this will be a temporary deal, and that, I think they know it too, that everybody should play the same amount of games. And so they'll get their money eventually. Now, I don't know how that part works out. I don't know how that works. Like, do they go to ESPN and say,
we'll play 9, but only if you add another $150 million to the deal. I don't know how open to that ESPN will be, so maybe there's more delay. But at least for right now, we know the final, decision, and that will be 8-game schedule for SEC in 2024. So there you have it with that, and then we'll see again what happens after that takes place.
Before we move on, Craig, I just saw this tweet from Brett McMurphy. It's from Scott Docterman, who works for The Athletic, covers Iowa mostly, but is now ventured into the NFL draft. Really great. So put this up, and this will also hurt their argument of our schedule is hard.
Yeah.
And everybody's mean.
No, yeah, I mean,
yeah, this hurts that argument altogether when Garrett gets this up.
Give me a second. Hang on, it's coming.
Yeah. So there are Power 5, there are 5 Power 5 conferences, and there are varying teams in that league, and this is the list of Power 5 teams that play 10 or more.
I'm having technical issues. Give me 1 second.
Here we go. I had this cool thing all laid out.
I know. I messed this up.
It's fine. No, it's fine, Garrett. I forgive you instantly and love you nearly unconditionally.
All right, here we go.
Okay, here we go. From Scott Docterman, teams are playing at least 10 Power 5 opponents in 2023. The Big 10 has 13 of 14. The Big 12 has 11 of 14. The Pac-12 has 10 of 12. The ACC has 10 of 15. The SEC, 2 of their 14 teams.
Yeah, but Georgia counts as 3 teams, and Bama counts as 2.5, and yeah. No, I mean that's a really interesting stat. Yeah. Well, I think that this will be a temporary deal. Here's the deal. I don't even. It's not a bad look on them per se. I do agree with you. It's kind of like one
misstep.
of those. It's kind of a misstep because I think even the fans will tell you, like, we're excited about Oklahoma, Texas coming in because we want bigger matchups. We want better matchups. That's what we've heard constantly about the Super League idea, about the entire reason for moving, and sure, financials come into play somewhat, and these other things come into play, but mostly it's just you want to play big games, and so that's 1 week where you could have had another big-time SEC opponent that will instead be whoever that ends up being. And I do think you have to have consideration for South Carolina playing Clemson and, let's see, Florida playing Florida State or, so on and so forth. Kentucky playing Louisville. But that's just one other game. So we'll see.
And here's why it's a misstep. They've been able to guard against the fact that people don't know. This is what they've been doing for a while with their schedule. They've been able to kind of guard against it. But now this decision shines a light on it where most people wouldn't have noticed before. That's why it's a misstep.
Yeah, they would have just said, like, oh, no, they're right. They played the toughest team, so they just, but now you're like, wait a second. So anyways, there you go with that. There's obviously a big story that's not really off the radar, but just timing-wise, I needed to bring that up. All right, elsewhere, we've got the East, just a couple of more minor notes, but the East-West Shrine game has apparently been moved to the Star in Frisco beginning in 2024. It'll be the 99th game coming up, which is kind of hard to imagine, but they've been playing that in Las Vegas and also St. Petersburg, Florida. So now the Star in Frisco is apparently getting the East-West Shrine game. So for those that don't know and don't live here in Texas or anywhere near Dallas, Frisco is an area that's gone from basically farmland and dirt to like this mini side metropolis to Dallas, and they're
going to have to add the F, like a DFWF.
Yeah, I mean, practically, like all the newest stuff and the shiniest new toys and the shiniest businesses all ended up in Frisco. That's where the Cowboys, headquarters are. And so now they're going to add the Shrine Bowl. And if you've never been to the Star, it's an indoor complex right there, situated with all the Cowboys' other facilities, and it's pretty nice. It's a great host for high school football games. So that'll be interesting to see the Shrine Bowl played there now.
Yeah, we've had Big 12 Media Days. We've done, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 high school football games there, Craig.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's a great. I've gone up there a lot for just to cover the Cowboys. Great venue, great spot for the East-West Shrine game. Yeah, who wants to go? We're going to the East-West Shrine game.
You know what? That might actually be a pretty easy little road trip for us.
Yeah.
And let's see, that would be, when would that game be?
Okay, they don't have an official date just yet, I don't think.
That's our man Eric Galco, too. So,
that might be a road trip moving forward.
That might be a fun one to go do next year. And, I'm all about that.
Keep an eye on it.
But, by the way, there is, if you do go to Frisco, and it's been about a year and a half since I've been to Frisco, but as you're driving up, it used to be all farmland. There is still like one cattle ranch that's like kind of right in the middle of it. And you can see it. I don't know if it's when you can't really see it when you're driving past it because it's like the way the highway is, you can't really see it. But when you're coming back, you can definitely see it.
Patch
like one guy who's absolutely holding out until somebody says we're going to build a Starbucks here. And then it's gone. But, there's still one there. But, Frisco's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's exploded. It's amazing. And that person is probably smart. It's a long play. I don't know if they'll be able to enjoy it, but certainly the generations after them will be able to enjoy it. And it's like Plano has a spot like that I grew up going to Plano constantly. And they had this one, like one of the founding families or something. Neighborhood, just boom, weird, random farmland, and then neighborhood, and they've been holding out for a long time. Elsewhere, speaking of dates for events, the 2024 NFL Draft will be from April 25th to 27th in Detroit. Now, had I mentioned this before?
I don't know, because we know that the next one's going to be in Green Bay.
I think I had said Green Bay. I don't think I'd mentioned Detroit, though. But that was from Tom Pelissero, said as the league was agreeing to some of their new dates as far as like when the league year ends and things like that, like all those types of important dates on the calendar. He also mentioned that Detroit will host the 2024 NFL Draft. And that might be one of the first spots where I'm like, I don't know, like how many people are going to travel for that. Certainly the city could use the influx of visitors, I'm sure. That brings, because we've seen the effect that it's had when we've been there previously, but that's not going to be one that I think gets you like super excited to go. But then again, like we learned, Grayson just randomly went this year with his buddies, and that's kind of become this traveling attraction that people go to regardless. So good news for the city of Detroit, and they will have it in 2024.
I would bet the hotels would be cheaper than it will be in other places, and so
yeah,
I'm curious. I mean, Detroit is a city that desperately needs a comeback. I mean, some of the buildings have gone back to nature, there because the economy there crashed it so hard. And
dude, I was there 20 years ago, legit, like for or whenever they held their last Super Bowl, and just walking downtown back then, I mean, I hope it's better than what, 'cause I can't imagine what it would be like 15, 20 years later.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of wish that this is kind of a tangent about Detroit, but they have. I mean, it's a great American city. I mean, like we are who we are in America because of a lot of things that came out of Detroit, right? And maybe if we like reinvigorated our already infrastructure that's there for manufacturing and started making more stuff there, it doesn't necessarily have to be cars. Like, what are we going to make here? Maybe if you moved it back in there, that'd be a smart thing to do. But who am I?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. And, I guess that was announced. I'm double-checking now. It was announced a while back, but I guess the dates for it are now official. So that's why he put that out there. Yeah. But April 25th to 27th. I did remember the Green Bay announcement, but I don't remember Detroit. Yeah. So I'm glad I kind of brought that back up. But that'll be great for them. And just one more note here. Tonight, NBA Finals get underway. 7:30 Central Time on ABC, ESPN+. Game number 1, Heat at the Nuggets, and so we will see who is crowned champ of this year's NBA Finals here over the next week or I guess at least a couple of weeks. But you got Jokic versus Butler as the big headliner stars, but there's plenty of other great players involved in this series as well. And so, that gets underway beginning later on tonight. Heat and Nuggets, game number 1. Still a little bit of a wait for the Stanley Cup Finals. That's not until, Saturday that gets kicked off.
Yep.
With the Panthers and Golden Knights. So still got a couple of days there, but some basketball on tap, and those are a few things off the radar.
Who you got, Craig, in the NBA?
Nuggets.
Yeah, I'll take the Nuggets. I'm not going to say
Garrett.
the games. It's
I'd have to ride with the Nuggets, too. I would like to see Jimmy Butler get one, but I think the Nuggets are overall the better team.
Yeah. And look, the Joker, I'd like to see. I mean, the guy's been an MVP a couple times. So
I won't be mad, really, whoever wins. I'd be happy with either team. But, yeah, I think it would be great validation for Jokic to, have the MVPs, but then to have the team hardware as well would really – I mean, not that he needs any validation, but that would just cement everything.
It helped Dirk. It helps everybody shut up.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about 5 years from now. Like, well, he's got 6 MVPs, but hasn't won a finals. There's none of that. He can just shut that up and then, kind of go about his business.
Yeah. By the way, we did skip over the fines for the field storming.
Yeah. That's right.
So, you better not fines are $100,000 in the SEC for rushing the field or court. $100,000 for the first offense, $250,000 for the second offense, and $500,000 for the third. Each institution has now they're starting at 0 right now, clean slate. So
no strikes.
No strikes until Tennessee rushes the field again next year when they beat somebody.
And then open a crowd fundraiser to get the fans to also then pay for the fine that they got. Yeah, but no, that'll be, I guess, something to take note of, but I don't foresee somebody being able to rush the field 3 times in a single season. That would have to be like Vanderbilt goes on a run and it just takes down team after team, and you storm the field 3 times, 4 times to reach that. I think you'd probably, if you really are trying to cut it off, then I think you start at $500,000, and then you're $750,000, and then you go $1 million, and then that would be probably a little bit better. But hey, whatever. I'm not super anti field rush. I just know why they're worried about it. So, yeah, that's interesting, and there's a few things off the radar, as I said.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back right here. We'll dive more into realignment, all that other stuff going on. I do want to talk a little bit about the SEC scheduling thing a little bit more, too. When we come back, this is 365 Sports.
They always have great events, concerts, and more in Woodway. You can go to discoverwoodway.com and get the latest information on a featured event coming up in mid-July. July 19th, 5:30 to 10. It's going to be acoustic night, an evening of stories and songs. Tickets are free, by the way, but you can go online, discoverwoodway.com, to get more information, featuring Thomas Zobra, Gabe Lee, and Caleb Cottle. Stories, songs, and just having fun. July 19th at the Carling Bright Arboretum, White Hall Patio. Gates open at 5:30. Parking available at the Pavilion at the Arboretum, the Woodway City Hall, and even the Woodway Family Center. DiscoverWoodway.com, also a list of hotels for you to stay at if you're coming into town to visit with tourism, the Silos in Magnolia, or just coming in to see relatives, and eventually back during the fall when we get there again for football games if you need a hotel. It's DiscoverWoodway.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
So, Garrett brought up an interesting point during the break when we were talking about the SEC schedule. Because if they say it's about the money, and again, Craig, you and I are not going to pretend that we understand how the money works and who gets what where. But long term, if it's about the money, Garrett, please pose your question again.
My question is, if it's about the money, if you replace one of your non-conference games with, say, Samford or Troy or whoever, then you're already going to save that money that you're donating out to them, right? So you have $1 million or so already saved. How much more money are you asking for? Because that's already money you're not going to spend to play somebody. I don't get it.
And I would assume, like, even let's just take a game that would be lesser than, that's a middle of the pack team. If it was Mississippi State versus the Citadel,
right?
If you put that all of a sudden as Mississippi State versus Mizzou, you're going to sell more tickets for that game. And more people are going to be there in spite of your sellout numbers. You're going to sell more hot dogs. You're going to sell more soda pop. You're going to sell more everything because more people will come to that game and stay longer than they would if you were playing the Citadel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question, and again, this is just for one more year. Obviously it wasn't going to change anything this year because Oklahoma and Texas are bound to the Big 12 for one more, but this is all just 2024, and beyond that we'll have the next year to figure out what that'll actually look like. But it's a valid question. I guess the answer would be, how much are 7 extra SEC games worth? Because that's what you're missing out on. And how much are those what does that equal per team for 14 teams? What are those 7 extra ESPN and ABC broadcasts worth? And is it more than $1 million a piece? Because if it is, that's what you're missing out on. Because you can have all that other good stuff too, and have that, but you'd also want as much as you can possibly get. So does that make sense? Like, yeah, you can make $1 million by having a better game in town, and you'd thrive as a city, and you'd make money off of it much more than you would make playing, Georgia A&T. But you could also make $10 extra million by simply having a contract written in where they compensate you for that extra game. So that might be where the discrepancy comes in, is like, yeah, we're still making money regardless, but we'd make way more money if we had it cut into the TV deal.
And look, in the short term for 2024, if you've got a contract for $1 million with Florida A&M, you're still going to have to pay them that to get out of the contract.
Right, yeah.
So in 2024, it doesn't make sense. But if long-term they keep using that excuse, there are bullet holes in it. And Craig, you brought up something Greg Sankey just said about their 10-game schedule in 2020.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he was, where did that go? He was talking about, he was asked about people criticizing, what he, I guess, would say to people who are going to potentially criticize them over this decision. And he would say, or he said that they, played they were one of those being criticized back during COVID for not making a decision right away, and that they eventually took their time in making a decision, and it worked out great, and they thrived. And he's right, they did. They had a great season, but the problem with that quote in particular from him was that, yeah, you thrived, but what was that schedule that season? It was all SEC teams. So that's part of why you thrived, was because you played all SEC games, and so this is just people wanting you to play more SEC games. So I felt like he was kind of talking – he wasn't really – to me, he didn't make a convincing point, because the entire reason you thrived was because you were playing more, not because you waited to make a decision. So that doesn't really jive, I think, with this right here. But, they're totally, inclined to do what they have to do for the betterment of the conference. And if they feel they need to kick it down the can for a year, that's understandable. I don't think that, this is going to be a situation, in my opinion, where we're talking about, this for very much longer. I feel like they'll go to the table with ESPN, ABC, whoever, and get this figured out because, like you said, it's not a big deal. We'll all enjoy the new, look conference next season and whatever those matchups are, and probably wish that there was another weekend where you had a full slate of those things. But as long as they get it done by 2025, then I think it's fine. If they don't, though, and this is like a long-term thing where they just refuse to play the same as others, then I think you really open yourself up to some super valid criticism. But I don't think this is like this particular just doing it for one more year is the end of the world. I just selfishly would love to see it, because I would much rather watch Oklahoma play a third SEC perma rival or whatever than playing Tulsa. So that's just me, and that's the fans and the media talking. I've seen some fans will push back of like, well, it's just the fans and the media complain. It's like, well, what are you? Yeah. Like, what do you have in it that you're like defending the SEC for? Like, why are you like on the payroll for the conference? Like, why would you not also want? You don't have to defend them over everything. You realize that, right?
What else is there than fans and media? There's the institutions, and then there's
maybe he's a professor. I don't know. Yeah, but I just thought that was a really odd criticism of like, sorry, we all want this thing that we love to be even more lovable, but you're worried about the money that's not going to you. I don't know. That perspective's weird to me, but okay. I guess you got to fight tooth and nail to defend the shield or whatever in this case, but we don't have to do that. Like, we can be critical of things we love, and it doesn't mean we don't love them anymore or that we love them less. It just means that nobody's perfect, including this conference. That's just silly. But
yeah, no, and it is. I think the more interesting thing to me is that like Greg saying, Mike, two commissioners in a row have managed to drive straight down a road with no traffic, and now they get to what I thought would have been one of those things where not only could they change it and be like, no, it just makes sense for us to do this. Like, they could have made it seem like they were not always avoiding this inevitability, and they did. They've got a flat tire. They didn't, blow out the sidewall. They'll pump it up and they'll fix it. It's just unnecessary criticism for them when this all could have been totally avoided.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be somebody that hears you and you're like, he's criticizing it. No, it's like you're just saying that they have basically been perfect in every decision they've made, and this is one time you're like, you know what? I don't think they made the right decision here. That's all you're saying, and that's valid. And like I just said a second ago, like, nobody's perfect, and it's fine. Like, nothing's – like, the sky isn't falling because of this decision today. But it's just, selfishly, I would love to see more great college football matchups, because that's kind of what we've now been promised with all of this moving around, particularly for that league and the Big Ten. And so to not want to have more, it's obviously financial, and that will be what needs to be worked out. Yeah. And will be, that will be the story then is what is Disney willing to put forward as far as more money
And they can probably wait that out another year.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of turmoil this year. Next year, next year obviously an election year too, so that creates some business issues. But
the Pac-12 will be figured out by then, and the landscape. Not that the Pac-12 would have any effect on the SEC's numbers, but just it'll be clear. The room will be it'll be less smoke filled.
It could in that. Like, if the Pac-12 is not involved on ESPN, then that's theoretical money that they would have to reinvest in their other properties that they have. So,
all right, I got one thing here and I don't know where this came from. I just saw it from, I don't know where the original tweet came from, but it's from Reddit College Football, I believe. Yeah, and it has the list of, and I don't know where they swiped this from. I wish I had linked to an article, but it says it appears only 5 schools of the 14 support a 9-game league slate. Was this maybe from a previous article, I guess? But I never saw, if it was, I never saw them actually get specific on this, but it's interesting. 5 schools of the 14 current members support a 9-game league slate, because as we know, Texas and Oklahoma can't vote till next year. Although, again, if they said or did what they said they would do, they both said that they would vote yes, so then you'd have 7. But that's still not the majority that you need. So the 9 that didn't vote for this are apparently now known because we know who the 5 are that did. Those who supported a 9-game league schedule per wherever they got this from, Florida was in favor, Georgia was in favor, LSU was in favor, Mizzou, that's right, Graham, baby, go Tigers, they were in favor, and Texas A&M was in favor. So those were the 5 apparently that all voted to go to 9 games, and the rest of the league decided to hold out or say no for right now. And so there's a little bit of a clearer picture.
Yeah, here's why Texas A&M's in favor. Like, they're the ones who've kind of gotten screwed in the schedule thing a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, the Georgia thing is well reported now, and that they've only played Georgia once since they've joined the league in all this time. Not that, I'm sure they're lamenting the losses they would have taken recently to Georgia, but even still, they haven't. Their cross-conference, or the SEC West to SEC East rival, is South Carolina, which I know that has to work out for some people, but that's not. Believe me, I grew up in a maroon and white household with a maroon and white family. Nobody is counting down the days to next year's South Carolina game.
Right,
it's just not. And
they've really tried hardest to make that a thing, and I've seen some even adopt it in a way, but it's still come on, man, you really know.
And no one, and on the other side of that coin, no one in Columbia, South Carolina is counting down the days to the A&M game next year.
Right.
It's just not how it was. And it's not that way all over the conference, but there's enough teams that have that same thing where, well, we got to play this team every year. Great. And so it's not. So the new format will be better. But A&M, of course, wants 9 because they, as much as they won't ever outwardly admit it and say it, if you keep with an 8-game schedule, there is potential down the line that you won't get to play Texas and benefit from that gigantic rivalry game and television number you're going to get every year. So, yeah, they need to fix that. They need to fix that. And then I think they will. If the plan is to go to 9, that's fine. I just think that you could have taken 1 year of it and gone, here's what we're going to do, and we're continuing to be bigger and badder more than you. Because, like I said before, every other conference in the Autonomy 5 conferences would have loved to have the consistency and have things go their way like Mike Slive and Greg Sankey have made it for the last however many years combined between the two of them. It's unbelievable the lack of resistance they get on anything. They just go.
True.
And even the Big Ten, who, look, Jim Delaney was a very powerful commissioner. Kevin Warren shook up the college football world and all that. As we've seen on the way out, there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, well, thanks for your help, but
things aren't always as they appear.
But yeah, thanks for your help, but glad you're gone. Enjoy Minnesota or Chicago. Where is he? Minnesota? Chicago. He came from Minnesota. Enjoy Chicago. Appreciate all your help. And look, the Big 12 for the first time really has a commissioner that everybody likes, and it's because he's more aggressive than the other ones. And ultimately, it looks cool now. We'll see how it works out on the other end. The ACC's been very bland. They had to make some BS alliance with the Pac-12 and Big Ten to get what they thought they were voting in their own best interest for a couple years ago. And we know what's going on with the Pac-12 and Larry Scott and how bad that was and what George Kliavkoff inherited. So everyone else would crave for this. So it is interesting to me to see them finally blow a tire after.
Yeah, I think that might be too harsh, though. I think
not blow a tire, but
I think they've got like a nail maybe that's going to be fixed.
They have a leak
because this really isn't that big of a deal, and I stress that. I can't stress that enough. It's not like the sky is falling, but it's a fun thing to talk about, and it's fun now because it's allowed someone to make the joke, it just means more like it just means less conference games. You can say that now, whereas before you didn't really have a little thing to poke. But beyond that, I mean, it is what it is. They'll probably win the title again this year, they being some team from that conference. Maybe not. I'm very curious how the expanded playoff changes that or doesn't, and what that, because for all we know, this all leads to them having 4 of the final 4 in the future, So I think they're fine, but you're right. This is one little minor thing that you can actually validly, have some sort of criticism over. But let's see what they do in 2024-ish when this decision rolls back around. We know there's at least 7 votes counting Oklahoma and Texas. Now, where do they get a couple more? Because they would still need a couple more. Maybe that is a 16-0 vote if, Mickey Mouse comes to the table and says, all right, here's another $100 million for another week of 7 games, and everybody's happy, because that's probably what will happen.
Yeah. This honestly is like, if you ever see like a picture of Heidi Klum like walking to Starbucks, like a little disheveled, like that's what it is. Looks fantastic 99% of the time. You've caught her in her one moment where she doesn't think you'll be looking.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. But I do think it is interesting that it illuminates something scheduling-wise they've been doing for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is not new that the SEC's been finding ways to make their schedule easier while everyone else is pushing harder, and then saying, well, our schedule is naturally harder. But when you look at it, you've got some tougher teams. Year in year, maybe you're a little bit deeper league, but you can't really say it's harder if you're going to pay less Power 5 opponents than every other conference is. Your argument kind of collapses in on itself. So,
I mean, I think they're, I think I've said about as much, because I don't want to keep pounding on them for this, but I guess the argument would be that their 8 equals others 9. Like I kind of said earlier, is the thought process there. That is what it is. I'm not going to change Fred and Tuscaloosa's mind on anything. Feel how you want to feel about it. But I think everybody who's a college football fan feels like it would be great to see more of those matchups. So hopefully we get to see those. We're just not going to get to see them in 2024, and we'll see beyond that. But, they did maybe do something for once that gives them a little bit of just being made fun of on social media for 48 hours or whatever, and that's a rarity because like you said, they're typically pretty bulletproof.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a break right here. We'll come back and then kind of jump into. We haven't jumped into the chat room. We'll jump into the chat room and then a top 5 to wrap up the show. This is 365 Sports.
It's the summer family reunions. July 4th is not too far away. We just finished up, of course, Memorial Day, and Texas Beef House is your home to get great product. They have bundles that I want to share with you. Hi, this is David Smoak. The Wagyu Sampler Bundle, variety of all of their hamburger products, hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, ground beef, summer sausage, and garlic links. Also, the family bundle called the Great Divide. Total of 20 pounds of product, a mixture of hamburger patties and ground beef. And lastly, the jalapeno and cheese Great Divide package, $20, 20 pounds total, mixture of their jalapeno and cheese patties and ground beef. And remember, when you think about Wagyu, you think about steaks, fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, just absolutely as delicious as it comes. And whole beef is aged. Even the hamburgers you get from TexasBeefHouse.com have that aged flavor, normally only available for steaks. They have brisket and more. Wagyu farm-raised beef in East Texas, just outside of Tyler and White House. It's TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back. Second to last segment of the show. Sir Blah Blahs said that I need to acknowledge June as Italian Heritage Month, and I absolutely will. Happy June to all my fellow Italians out there. It's a great month. The holiday, the feast day of Sicily is June the 19th, which is St. Joseph's Day, and I have been to many a St. Joseph altar in my day. If you've never been to one and you're Catholic or you're not, and you want to have some really good pasta and really good cookies, find a church with Sicilians in it, and you'll have one. So, but yes, it is Italian Heritage Month, and it's my wedding month. So those two things coincide. And I'm getting married in the most Italian of places of the world, Hawaii.
A whole lot of Italians out there in Hawaii.
It was funny. Like the concierge at the hotel, like sent me a list of restaurants that I may want to make reservations at. And one of them, she's like, "This is the best Italian food I've ever had." And I'm not saying that it might not be, and there's probably an Italian guy that works there, but I was surprised to see that recommended when all the other ones are, more local fare.
Right.
Hawaiian.
Must be pretty good, I guess.
Yeah,
or they just don't really know what good Italian food tastes like. I don't know.
Some places don't. Believe me, I've been there. So anyway, let's see in the chat. Let's see. How does the Big Ten make so much money? Iowa, Indiana, Rutgers, Minnesota, Northwestern are garbage brands. I'm likely forgetting another garbage brand. Nebraska is irrelevant too. That's harsh, metal. They make a lot of money because they have gigantic alumni bases, and I believe somebody said that in the chat, because they have huge alumni bases. Purdue, huge alumni base. Nebraska's got a huge alumni base. Let's not get like Ohio State, Michigan State, gigantic alumni bases. Wisconsin is a huge alumni base. So when you're talking about people who are in your theoretical TV viewing, audience, that when you turn on a game that's Ohio State and Purdue, there's a lot of living alumni that theoretically would turn on that game.
Yeah, TV ratings, bud. I mean, that's a pretty simple way to put it. I mean, go look at the TV ratings. Ohio State's got monstrous numbers. Michigan's got monstrous numbers. They're at the top of the pack, obviously. Big metropolitan areas. I mean, why is Rutgers in the Big Ten? To begin with, much less, why are they making so much money? It's because of geography, what they bring as far as rolling that into the Big Ten footprint, their TV ratings, their alumni bases. I mean, they're large. They're large institutions. You're not talking about a TCU or a Baylor or schools of that size. You're talking about all large, like, state institutions with hundreds of years of, what is like the longest history for a college in this country? Or like on average, 125, 150 years or something like that maybe. And so just all of those things kind of rolled into one. Big, huge fan bases, big, huge programs, big, huge, populations. And that adds up to big, huge TV ratings more often than not. And especially when it's the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. But that's why. That's the reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. They're huge. Nebraska is 9th all-time in wins.
Like, Nebraska hasn't been good, but they still average probably like a couple million more than your typical like Big 12 game does. And so it doesn't really matter that they've, fiddled around with making a bowl game on any given year, and definitely haven't, they're a shell of what they were in the 90s, but they're still a huge fan base with a huge amount of supporters, and that's not going to change. They're still going to draw 3 million viewers for, whatever game that might be, and that's appetizing to the TV folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go there. I was looking for other direct questions, but it appears that we've got some, just interpersonal
I think when we don't really address it for a while, it just kind of goes on its own.
Yes.
So if we pop in and kind of like acknowledge it, then I think people realize like, oh, yeah, we can pop something in there. But we went on a pretty long stretch with guests and stuff where chat, I think, just probably ran itself there for a while. So that might be something to do with it.
Yeah. So there you go. We got the top 5 coming up. So we'll just take a break and come back with that. This is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession?
We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef, and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 tiresome realignment tropes. This was a group aggregated here, Craig, before you got to the studio today, top 5. I was having trouble. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I can give you 5 top 1s, but they're not all the same topic. So I can't, it's not the top 1, and it's not 5 top 1s. So I needed some help today. So we went in a group today, and these are the things that realignment has kind of got a little exhausting with. So number 5, it's kind of exhausting because when you look at the end of this, who's the real winner in all of this? And it's really Disney and Fox. Maybe we'll get some better games on TV. It'll be fun for us for a little while, but in the end, do we the fans win in all this? I don't know. I mean, I think at best we break even.
I don't think that they have the fans in mind, guys.
No, they don't.
I don't know why we'd think otherwise at this point, because if it was a fan thing, then guess what? They would have just passed 9 SEC games starting in 2024. The real winner are the TV companies, and also, eventually the student athletes as well, or the football players, whatever they're going to be referred to as full-time employees whenever that happens here in the next few years, and they're making, consistent money. They'll be winners in all of this. The athletes, at least in football and men's basketball, and, how far beyond that as a whole remains to be seen. But, yeah, I mean, it's not designed for if it was designed for the fans in mind, then why the hell is USC and UCLA going to play most of their games across the other side of the country?
Yeah.
We're not involved in the decision-making, I don't believe, But, hey, you'll get probably more fans to show up to the Coliseum to see Michigan come in as a regular season opponent than maybe you would others, and so it makes up for some of that in some ways. But, yeah, it's the people who make the money. That's who wins. So the TV networks, the schools themselves, and the athletic programs, and then, trickles on down to the athletes themselves, but to what extent still remains to be seen. But, yeah, it's definitely not a prize for the fans at the end of the road, I don't believe.
Yep. Number 4, reckless speculation. Now, look, I love each and every one of you who emails me or sends me a DM, but sometimes it gets hard to kind of like explain why, so-and-so state does not make sense in this conference and why, in spite of your best efforts to explain it, it would. Because, again, you got to look at TV ratings and TV numbers and all that. Those are the big things that are driving all this is TV money and how much money you can get out of that. Or just the why people would do certain things. We here try to put a rest to a lot of the speculation and the reckless ones at that, but it's really hard because you don't everything is done in the dark, and with the last two, you wake up in the morning and people are gone. It wasn't built up. This one's a little bit different with the Pac-12 going on now, because now that you had two teams that left and a media deal that's expiring, you see, there's maybe a little bit easier path to follow, but still leads to just wildly reckless speculation that you do have to sift through all over the place.
I think just a lot of that too, though, is just people having fun with it.
Yeah.
That they find the topic interesting and they find realignment interesting. I know not everybody does, but some people do. And, I think we sometimes have to be mindful of where we're sitting versus somebody else who's not talking about it for 3 hours a day. And so they just hop on Twitter after work and they want to talk about college football and they find oh, what's this about Oregon and Washington? And, it can. I think a far bigger problem is those who find the attention that it brings and then just
wait for that.
Okay, well, that one to me, that's way more of an actual and I don't know how much of a problem it is, but I take far more offense to that than just Joe coming home from the restaurant and saying hey, what have you heard about so-and-so? Because we got a lot of San Diego State fans that have been interested in. I'll just say this, I don't appreciate the folks who just lie for hits. I don't like that. That's not what we do. We try to, if we're going to talk about something, hopefully there's been some reporting behind it or some backing of it and there's some legitimacy to it, and it's not just, like you said, totally reckless speculation, completely just throwing whatever out there. I agree with that.
Yeah. Number 3, tribalism. We have this problem in this country anyway, and it's become kind of silly.
Not in college sports, though.
It's been kind of silly. I think of it a lot in the way, once it's all done. So say Colorado and another team come to the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Those people who have been just slamming the Pac-12 for months, it'll be kind of like that scene in Forrest Gump where he was running and all those people were following him, and then he just decided to stop. And the one guy's like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
That's kind of where you're going to be. Okay, great. You won. Your team gets to play Colorado now and Stanford doesn't. What do you do now? You did all that energy. Did you really win something there? Or it gets, I don't know. It just gets kind of silly, right? It's very silly.
It's silly, but that's also why we love it, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing of college sports is in sports is the tribalism. I think it can get, when we have the person, randomly off social media who's defending the SEC scheduling, it's that's a level of just stupid tribalism. Because it's an entity. You don't have to defend it, and sometimes it can be wrong. I think that gets to be silly where you just refuse to believe anything other than what you and that is a problem in this country, right? Absolutely. But yeah, there's people that have drawn their lines in the sand. I said way back that one of the funniest things to see, or one of the most painful things to see, would be all of those people who are declaring the Pac-12 was dead, and then all of a sudden the Pac-12 shows up one day and announces this grand new deal and everybody's on board and 2 new teams are being added, and what would those folks on the other side say? I wondered about that for sure. And then vice versa. There's been plenty of Pac folks who have had their nose in the air and that never would happen. And you know what? It might. And how do they react to that? I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of tribalism involved in these conversations.
Yep. Number 2, repetitive fake news over and over and over again. That gets kind of just wait for that. What I'll tell everybody is when it happens, it's super interesting and exciting, but let it happen. That's what I think I get kind of tired of. It's today's the day. Today's the day. No, it's not the day until it's the day.
Yeah, I guess that goes to some
some folks who, are promising something's going to happen and then it doesn't, and then they just kick the can down the road to the next day and the next day, and then, just trust me, bro. And then it's like 4 months later, and it's like, nope, just around the corner, and like they, just keep you leashed to the updates. But, there's some of that going on. There's also, you don't really know what is and what isn't, too. I mean, unless it's just completely absurd that you can spot it a mile away. I mean, who knows if that, report on Colorado, how much, I'm sure there was somebody who saw that and is like, there's no chance in hell. And then here they are a month later, like, oh, wow, that actually might be something. So, you don't really know, and there is a lot of BS out there you have to sift through because, unfortunately, just simply throwing something out there, there's no penalty for it. I mean, unless, I guess, people wise up and just stop following you. But there is definitely, something to just then this is the part of social media I can't stand, but just the impressions. And I know we have to deal with that. That's just sort of how everything works now. But I saw somebody bragging about the fact that they were trolling with the way that they do things, and then bragged by showing the amount of impressions and stuff they got from doing that, and didn't see anything wrong with doing that because they got what they wanted in the end. And that just makes me feel gross because
I'm sorry you didn't get hugged.
I don't need it that bad. I don't need the attention or the whatever success that brings. I don't want it that way. And if that means I'm just a lower level, middle of the road dude rather than being on ESPN, I am totally fine with that because I'll sleep okay. But there are other people who just, they need that. And however it comes, and I can't really speak to that because I cannot relate on any single level.
Yep. And that brings us to a nice segue into number one, fake Twitter journalists. I'm really talking about a couple people here. One of them who I don't even know who he is. But yeah, my sources are telling me this, my sources are telling me that. No, they're not. You don't have sources. You're reading message boards and you're posting things. And you're getting everybody all up in it's a tizzy because you like you said, you like the attention. And again, I'm sorry that you weren't hugged, but please let it go.
Yeah, I guess it's just a byproduct of social media. I don't know. There's definitely some of that, and I think it goes back to what I was just talking about of just the attention that it can bring, no matter how or why or whatever. But I don't know. I think there's also a lot of good people that we've learned about through this process that have become guests on this show or people that we follow along with and all that. There's definitely some element of the other side of that as well. And just some element of you don't know who's on the other side of that phone or screen typing that and what they're even about. It could be an 8-year-old kid for all we know half the time. Do have to watch out for a lot of the fake stuff and just be wary of those, just trying to get impressions or hits or whatever it was that you call it. And don't believe everything that you read is probably sage advice, old wisdom, and something that we should definitely carry, forward with us is don't believe everything you read necessarily, because there's definitely some tweets out there on any given day that can make you think something's happening that's very clearly not.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Craig, thanks to Max Olson, to Kendall Kaut, and to Mickey Spagnola, to Levi, Graham, Jack, Garrett, and Emery for their hard work as well. Big things on the horizon as far as our technology goes. We are making progress. We've got wire running in the building for fiber optic internet, and you do not know how much I want that. I've wanted that in this building more than your kid wanted that PS5 at Christmas. I promise you that. That's how bad we needed it here. This is 365 Sports. We're back again tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.
Ideal MRI is a